Hello, good morning. Again, Covenant Community entitled Nigeria of Our Dreams. There's been conversations across our community groups, especially since the recent events, and a few of ourselves, what should we have done better? We'll jump right into the title of the event, Building the Nigeria of Our Dreams. Everyone has what's yours. First, I'd also like to thank those who are in the audience. Thank you very much for making it better. I suffered a meeting yesterday when they said there were election movements, but it's still those of us that could make it. This is the event. Here physically, it's all up until, so feel free to still come to church, but then join us physically on the Church Covenant channel, or on Zoom if you register. You can still register online directly to the meeting. We'll kick off. We have a very interesting hours today. We'll start with a talk Q&A session with Pastor Ola Shorinyo. It's going to be I'm actually really looking forward to it. We'll follow that with a presentation project feed. Feed is a group of projects like ourselves who made to do something about the situation in Nigeria. Right after the NSA event, they decided to listen to of their communities, action on it, think about what they've been doing, and it's going to be a really cool session. That will follow by sessions. Panelists will do this to their topic already presented. We'll get right into it. Introduction of Pastor Ola. It's a privilege for me to introduce. I'm honored that he is joining us at this meeting. If you do not know Olakunle Shorinyo, to explain or to give a bio of him, Pastor Olakunle has been described as a futurist, an iconoclast, and I went to check the word because honestly, I don't know of it. It means person who criticizes cherished beliefs or institutions. So he's also as an iconoclast, a global thought leader, a transdisciplinary keynote speaker, thought-led influencer, events consultant, and strategist. He's a culture shaper, a philanthropist, a social impact mentor, spiritual guide and teacher. These are just of the words we can use to describe Pastor Ola. He's also the rocker. I went to check the meaning of. I don't know what the rocker is. I can see you googling. I did. The ruckus means disruptor. It's most raw definition. It means caution. So an indication of this morning, but let's see. As it is called by colleagues, the ruckus holders globally, he helps leaders and impact individuals reach deeper dimensions and purpose, discern and embrace their desire for newness, architect higher level global influence and confidence for themselves personally, and the idea projects that they hold. Simply put, Olakunle Shorinyo figures move from point A to point B globally. And so it's my and privilege to him this morning. One more thing. Actually, right now in the United States, it is 3 a.m. or just past 3 Dallas time. Join us today. We cannot thank him enough. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited. Thank
Same
you.
Here. Same
Everyone can
silent,
hear me
sir.
clearly.
Same here. I'm just waiting for you to come. Awesome to come on screen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you again. again, we really cannot appreciate you enough. All the members of the Covenant community groups, from us to you, thank you very much, sir.
You're most welcome.
Okay, so we'll get right into it. We will start with a 30-minute talk on the theme of the event, which you will take, and then we'll go into a Q&A session. To the members of the audience, if you have any question, feel free to give it to an usher, and then she will pass it to me. So right on to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I am excited about this. Thank you, Kemi, for your time, EMC, and everyone in the team. I thank you for, investing your consciousness in my direction and allowing me to contribute to the awesome work that you guys are doing. Again, I have to acknowledge the senior pastor in the house, Pastor Kojo Yemade, and his dear wife for the awesome work that they've done consistently for years. They are one of those people that we draw a lot of meaning from. And so I want to congratulate everyone in the Covenant Nation for the authentic leadership that God has blessed you with and blessed us all with. And I rejoice and I'm excited in this moment. Thank you all. Thank you, sir and ma, for the investment of your consciousness as well in my direction and investing in the grace of God upon my life. I do not in any way take it for granted. I thank all the audience today and everyone sitting here and all those listening online. Thank you all so much for making this investment. All right. Okay, so Holy Spirit, this moment is yours. You have us. We have you. We thank you for precision and clarity. When we know better, we do better. So we know that all is just safe and clear with you. Thank you for shifts, next level, new frontiers, new insight, new revelations, new power, new positioning in Jesus' name. So the idea about Nigeria is a very interesting one. And it's something that I really believe holds a promise. And with the character of every promise is the truth of the promise, the promisor, and the promisee, right? The idea that the promise is as strong as the character of the promisee and the promisor. All through scriptures, we saw God made promises to people and to nations who themselves then have to release themselves at a level of consciousness and attitudinal cooperation to be able to sit in the weight of that promise, right? And it's so easy. If I promise you, who am I? Let's say Bill Gates, the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, perfect, promised anyone $1 million on Monday morning. You know it's Jeff Bezos. You know he would deliver $1 million. You don't have that problem at all. But he told you, take this check on Monday morning, go to the bank and present this check. You will be given $1 million. And then he left you, and then you left. You know that money, he was saying this to you on Saturday morning. You know that money is as good as Monday morning. You know you have the money already. So you have the promise. Jeff Bezos, who gave you the check, is the promisor. You, who received the check, is the promisee, right? Then, because of the character of the promisor, and because of the legitimacy, credibility of the promise, you saw a truck coming your way, and you were so confident that, look, I have a promise from the promisor who does not fail, who will deliver this thing. And so it doesn't matter what this truck does, I'm going to see Monday morning, and I'm going to get my $1 million. If you have that kind of attitude, what is going to happen? The truck will hit you. When the truck hits you, you die. When you die, God, the promisor will receive you and he will say something like, welcome, good but foolish servant, right? And then why will the promise be dead as the person lies down there with the check in his hand? Is the promise dead? No, the check is still in his hand. The promise is alive. Is the promisor dead? No, the promisor is alive and well, but the promisee did not supply the attitudinal cooperation to sit in the weight of that promise. And so while the promisor and the promise remain legitimate and alive, the integrity of the promisee is compromised, right? And that's pretty much what has happened to all over the Word of God as well. How Israel has gone into exile, how, great men have evolved though out of that exile, how smaller nations have defeated Israel in war, even though they have the monarch of the universe as the custodian of their affairs. They lost battles, not because God took any pleasure in their loss, but because their loss became a necessary part to their sanity that they were losing or they were compromising. And so pain, therefore, in that scenario, becomes a very instructive instrument, right? Because the objective of that pain and that discomfort pretty much is to wake you up to your highest responsibility. If your hands are here where you should be resting, right, you will never feel any pain. You will never feel any discomfort. Why? Because your hands are at equilibrium, right? Your 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 body is at equilibrium. They are all where they should be. So you will feel no pain whatsoever, really, right? Then you take your hands and put it here, and then you hung it there without nothing supporting you. And then you just put it there, the two hands, and you just hung it there. Initially, you will feel no pain. Initially, you will feel no pain, which is the proof that a wrong move or a wrong decision or a wrong positioning can be greeted by an initial experience of bliss and even peace and zero pain. It doesn't make it the right move. It doesn't make it the right decision, right? Marriages have suffered that because the initial experience in any marriage is bliss, not pain. Nobody went to a marriage and said, I love you with a slap. And they said, I love you too with a blow. No, nobody did that. Everybody married, divorced today started with candlelight dinners, cards, and lovey-doveys, and all of that. And yet they killed each other later. The idea is once your hands are here, you will feel no pain initially, though they were not designed to be here. It is wrong for them to be here permanently. It's okay for them to be here for a while, but not permanently. If you keep them there long enough, you begin to feel serious pain, terrible pain. Now, you don't use painkillers to kill that pain. If you use painkillers, they can kill it for a while, but you will soon suffer relapse because your hands are simply not designed to be here. In fact, if you leave it here for days, they may need to amputate that hand because all of the blood there will have drained to somewhere else. And so you may need to lose that hand, as a matter of fact. The pain, however, that you are feeling is not a problem. It's a fact, and you don't solve facts. You solve problems, you walk around facts. First of all, you accept facts, and then you walk around them. Those who attempt to solve a fact are those who quickly get on the lunacy lane, are the ones who quickly begins to communicate their nuisance and their foolishness, at times their lunacy. You don't solve a fact, you solve a problem. What do you do with facts? You accept it and you walk around it. So when you begin to feel a pain, that is not a problem. You don't solve that kind of, that is a fact. The fact is you are not rightly positioned. So what do? The pain is the loudest voice of God instructing you to make adjustment. Instructing you to make adjustment. That pain is simply asking you to make adjustment. Make adjustment. Make adjustment. If you keep it long, I don't care what kind of pain it is. Financial pain, marital pain, relationship pain, business pain, national pain, economic pain, political pain, whatever the pain is, it is a simple call to adjustment. And once you have the clarity, because when we know better, we do better. Once you have the clarity to know what type of adjustments you need to make, which is your first level of intelligence, is to know what type of of adjustment you need to make, because there is a continuum to how you respond. You have to answer the question of what. You have to answer the question of why. You have to answer the question of how. Then you have to answer the question of what next? What next? What is the energy of acceptance? Why is the energy of clarity? Meaning, how is the energy of innovation, progress? What next is the energy of invention? That is newness, next level, right? So part of how that works is your hand is here, you are feeling terrible pain. Make adjustment, make adjustment, make adjustment. The moment you bring your hands down to where it should be, that's it. Does the pain disappear immediately? No, the pain doesn't go immediately, which also confirms the idea that your circumstances, your pain and discomfort does not in any way communicate the veracity, the credibility, or the legitimacy or illegitimacy of where you are. The discomfort around you, the pain that you feel also does not mean you are in a wrong place. Your hands are back to where they should be, but because they've spent too much time here, there is a residue of that pain that will linger, even though you are back to equilibrium. But it's only for a while. But you have to understand it so that you don't try to solve that problem as well, because it's not a problem, it's a fact. So, but if you keep your hands at equilibrium long enough and continue to obey that science of nature, what is going to happen is the pain will evaporate and it will disappear with its exhaust and you'll be cool, right? That, ladies and gentlemen, is the classical case of our country, Nigeria. The pain we feel does not require determination. It doesn't require any form of arrogance. It doesn't require pity. It needs clarity. Children are dying in Syria, and God has not left his throne. We should not overrate ourselves and walk into a hubris born of unguardedness. There's confident ignorance. There's something called confident ignorance. The idea that you know nothing, but you are not aware. So you carry your ignorance with a lot of class. You carry your ignorance with a lot of foolishness. You are wrong, but you are not aware. So you pretty much carry your ignorance with class, with swag, if you get what I mean. The idea is emotions are not strategies. Emotions and feelings, because Nigerians are angry. But we've been angry for 60 years. And Nigerians are really angry. But anger is not a strategy. Even hope is not a strategy. I can prove that to you, but there's no time. Hope is not a strategy. And so people need to do better and to transcend the limits of emotions, because emotions must never create action. We must never move from E to A. Emotion to action makes us susceptible to error. Emotions is just like freedom. Freedom without rules is a vice. Emotion without clarity and training is equally a vice. When you feel anything, emotions must be subjected to reasoning. And reasoning must be tested and guided by truth before you arrive at action. When you subject emotion to reasoning and allow reasoning to be guided by truth, you arrive at what I call CIA, credible, independent action, right? And when you miss that too, and you miss reasoning and the test and guidance of truth, you are going to move from E to A, and that will expose you to error. And so we don't need a lot of emotions when it comes to the Nigerian situation. We need clarity. We shouldn't hope that we know. We need to know that we know. We shouldn't just hope that we know. And the best way I describe the Nigerian situation really is a parable I call the parable of the raw eggs. The parable of the raw eggs. What is the parable? The parable is the idea that a basket of raw eggs exists. And every 4 years, we go into that basket to pick 4 eggs randomly to represent the basket. When we break the eggs into the fry pan, they are all rotten eggs, all of them rotten. And we are mad, we are angry. We reject the rotten eggs and we go back to the basket again to choose 4 eggs. And just as we choose the 4 eggs, we get angry again because all of them, as we broke them into the fry pan, raw eggs. And every 4 years, we continue to go into the to the basket to pick 4 raw eggs to represent the entire basket. But each time we have broken the eggs into the fry pan, they are all rotten eggs. They said insanity is to keep doing things the same way and expect a different result. And so the truth is, 60 years is long enough for us to begin to ask ourselves deeper questions as to maybe this basket itself is a basket of rotten eggs, such that regardless of how we choose the eggs randomly, the problem may not be with the 4 eggs that represent the basket, that have been representing the basket every 4 years for 60 years. The problem may be that the entire basket itself is a basket of rotten eggs. And for me, that changes the game completely. If we dare to consider such a parable as to the Nigerian situation, it may now call for a new type of boldness to understand that maybe the leadership of Nigeria is not the problem after all. The leadership of Nigeria is the secondary block of a primary problem. The primary problem is the people of Nigeria, because the leadership of Nigeria is not outsourced, is not imported. The leadership of Nigeria was chosen from amongst Nigerians, So, and the leadership has always been chosen from amongst Nigerians. I therefore suggest that it has to be that the people deserve the leadership they get, because essentially the leadership she gets is a representation of the character and the quality of the thinking of the people, isn't it? So unto that we must turn. And the moment we begin to understand that, we begin to see that political parties cannot change Nigeria. I don't even know any nation in the world that has been transformed by any political party. I don't know one. Not in the United States, not Japan, not China, not Singapore. Politics don't fix countries, right? The people fix countries. And a classical example would be Singapore, that moved from third world to first world through the clarity of a gentleman who was able to rally around the entire nation around an idea. His name is Lee Kuan Yew. You need to check him out. It is interesting to note that the same Lee Kuan Yew was in Nigeria somewhere in 1965 or thereabout to appeal to the governor of Lagos State, Mobolaji Johnson, to give them a loan. He didn't come to beg Nigeria, to beg Lagos. Singapore is a first world country today. You know, I like to speak about voluntary colonization, which is the next level of experience for nations across the world in different environments, particularly the destiny of so many so-called third world countries today. I don't know if questions will get there, but I can prove to you the reality of voluntary colonization, which is going to happen. And I speak to you in that sense as a futurist, and I speak to you as a prophet. I can tell you for free that voluntary colonization is sure. Voluntary colonization, nations of their own accord are going to yield to other nations and call them that and accept that they can no longer handle their realities. And they will beg a bigger nation to stretch its map to contain them such that they become a state in that country. They become a colony of that country such that their president becomes like a governor. The governors become like local government chairman or some mayor structure or something, right? That I can give you countries that are jogging hard to that reality right now, including Nigeria, by the way. But that does not mean we will get there. Like I said, it's a question, it's an interplay of promise, promisor, and promisee. Our destiny is right before us. But the truth is, we have to know that even the PVC cannot change Nigeria. The votes cannot change Nigeria. And I'm going to break that down real quick and give a little charge, and then we can move to question and answers. First of all, you must understand how power works. The new form of control is through your choices. Don't forget that the strength of voting, because I can prove to you, really, that even if there is no rigging in Nigeria, if there's no rigging, and the ballot is free and fair, no rigging, we will still choose wrong leaders. The character and the clarity to do so is not present in the majority of our people. It's not present. We don't know how to make a choice. I don't mean everybody, but the predominant energy of our people is that we don't make choices between good and bad, between good and better, or better and best. We don't make such choices. Nigerians only make choices between good and bad, or bad and worse. Any fool can make that choice. I mean, if I ask you, where do you want to work? GT Bank or ISIS camp? It's easy call. You know that choice. You will work in GT Bank. If I ask you, who do you want to marry? Arm robber or chorister? Easy call. You marry a chorister. Who do you want to marry? A pastor or a drunkard? Of course, you rather choose a pastor. Even if you don't like pastors, you will choose a pastor above a drunk, right? So, easy call. Any fool can make the choice. Anyone can make the choice. And please, if you find me using the word foolishness, I'm not trying to be insultive or arrogant. Foolishness in my world is not an insult. It's a state of existence. It means there is a set of behavior that conforms to a definition. As you cannot call a carpenter a surgeon or a musician an athlete, so you cannot call a foolish person a wise person or call a wise person a foolish person. And that is why Apostle Paul did not say, "Oh, wise Galatians," trying to confess positive. He said, "Oh, foolish Galatians." Why? They were acting in a way that is consistent with the meaning of foolishness. And so when I use that word, I'm not trying to be unguarded. I'm just trying to speak to the weight of the issue. So back to the point. Nigerians don't make a choice between good and better. Good and better is a more complex choice. It's a more difficult choice, and you need a level of balance and clarity for you to be able to make that kind of choice. Because if I ask you, where do you want to work, Access Bank or GT Bank, it becomes complex. Who do you want to marry, an engineer or a lawyer or an architect? It becomes difficult. Who do you want to marry, a pastor or an evangelist? That is a choice between two good alternatives. That's tougher. And you know, in the United States, they had to make a choice between McCain and Obama. Both of them are good enough to be president anywhere. Both of them. Both of them are good enough to be president in any other country. In the United States, the same thing goes for Britain. But in the US or in most of those first world countries, they still have to choose one of those people because their people have been trained to make that choice between good and better or better and best. For most part of Africa and third world environments, so-called third world environments, the choices are either between good and bad, easy call, or bad and worse. And for a while in Nigeria, it has always been a choice between bad and worse. And I say that with all humility, with all sense of responsibility, but that is our reality. Now, how does that happen? That's not happening because of the science of electioneering. No, that is happening because of a power dynamic that we don't understand. And I'm going to break it down into two basic things. The first one is the mass ignorance of the people. America was not transformed by its government. It was transformed by its entrepreneurs, by its private sector. And if you doubt me, go see the documentary, The Men Who Built America, and see how people use ideation, how people use ideas pretty much to compel the government to legislate in their favor, to make laws and rules in their favor. Because every government needs legitimacy socioeconomically. And when you see people who are building incredible, usable, transferable, legacy-sensitive ideas, it is to your own good that you take a stake in that for political dividend, for some political equity. And so you will camp around it. You want that to happen in your government, right? And people are corrupt everywhere. Don't get me wrong. A lot of what we call robbery is called lobbying. A lot of what we call bribery is called lobbying in some environment. So don't get it wrong. We just don't have the technical consciousness to be able to handle our narratives, right? And then sit around the best of us in front and the worst of us behind. The United States, for example, is a country with terrible people. Terrible are in the United States as well. But what the United States have mastered, just like terrible people are everywhere in the world, the proof of that is that there is a prison in every country. There are prisons in every country. It shows you that every country hosts its own foolishness, its own nuisance, its own lunacy, right? Its own disequilibrium, socioeconomic disequilibrium. People who went to Harvard are in jail, or who ran Enron down, who ran Arthur Anderson down, who ran WorldCom down, who compromised in all those places. Those are guys who went to some of the best schools in the world, who attended some of the Ivy Leagues, and some of them are in prison, in jail. In this present government in the United States, people are in jail who have some of the best education. Those are not our problems, right? The idea is the United States have simply mastered how to put the best Americans in front and the worst at the back. In most part of Africa and third world environments, by some default, I don't know what it is. Well, I know what it is actually. We have mastered how to put the worst of us in front and the best of us behind, right? And that is critical. Now, to take this home, understand that the mass ignorance of the people is the only problem in any country. The moment the people are aware and conscious, based on certain truths and constructed into usable ideologies, the destiny of that nation is arrested, and positivity and times of refreshing renaissance is on the way. As long as the people remain ignorant, fearful, and opaque, trust me, they pretty much deserve the chains of their oppressors. Simple as that. Now, how does that work? You see, there was a time in human history, there was a time in the manipulation of the human condition that choices was the tool of dominance and superiority. And people were oppressed by taking their choices from them. So slave trade, what did it do? All that slave trade was doing was taking away your right to choose your deserved human experiences. You see, the word slavery, the word poverty, and the word victim, they mean the same thing. You can define them anyhow, but they all have one thing in common. Whether you are a slave, or you are poor, or you are a victim. One thing you have in common, that those three, the poor, the slave, and the victim, the three of them really have no control over their necessary due human experiences. They have no control over their necessary due human experiences. If you are a victim, that is what you don't have in that moment that made you a victim. Somebody controlled your due necessary human experience and they didn't let you control it. When you are poor, that is what you are not able to do all night long, every day. You are not able to control your necessary due human experiences. If you are a slave, that is what is happening to you as well. You are not able to control and manipulate your own necessary due human experiences. Some people control it for you. That is what it means to be a slave, to be poor, and to be a victim. That is the real meaning. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of car you are driving. Once you cannot do that, you have no control over your necessary due human experience. You are a slave in an Armani #1 suit. You are a slave driving a Range Rover or living by the beach in Lekki. The moment you have no control over your necessary due human experiences. I'm going somewhere. And so the oppressors of the world, the power centers of the world, understood what they have to do. Control that power to choose or to manipulate their deserved, due, necessary human experiences. Control it. And once you control it, you have them pretty much. And so there are three people in the world. The people you see every time, which is the masses. The people you see when they are appointed, when they are displayed, CEOs, actors, politicians, public figures, all of those people. They are those you see when they are appointed or when they are displayed, right? But those people are also controlled by the people you don't see at all. Some call them mafia. Some call them brokers. Some call them power centers. They call them different names. They call them cabal. They are in every country. But they are behind the scene. You don't see them. They don't participate publicly. They participate behind the scenes. Stay with me. But the people you don't see control the people that you see and appoint the people that you see. Then the people that you see when they are appointed are the ones who control the masses, those that you see every time, the masses. How does that work? The way it works is through choices. That's the way it used to work. So slave trade tried to control human choices. But you see, no human being is designed to tolerate and endure non-manipulation. If you want to manipulate a human being, you must do it in a script. You must do it codedly. It must not be aware that you are running that program. It must be a virus of some sort that is running in his system without him being aware. Because the moment he's aware that you are trying to control his choices, he's going to reject it. Rebellion, resistance, protest, all of that will begin. And so it's the design of the human condition, right? So we rejected slave trade. It became colonialism, still controlling human choice. What did we do? We found out, we rejected it. It became military governments. What is it trying to do? Still controlling choices. What did we do? We found out, we rejected it. Then it became politicians or military governments in civilian clothing. What is going on? We are rejecting it. We don't want it because we know. So it has gone on like that. Yes, across the world, dictatorships. The same thing, trying to control choices all over the world. Dictators were rejected. Why? People find out, and so they were rejecting it. So I don't know when the meeting happened. I don't know how the meeting happened and where it happened, but I can tell you for free that at some point, power centers sat down and say, we cannot continue to manipulate their choices, because if we do so, they will always find that and they will always reject it. We have to find another science to controlling them. What is this science? Got it. The science is go to them, give them control over their choices. Hire leaders, hire motivational speakers, authority figures, pastors, imams, religious leaders, life coaches, motivational speakers, thought leaders. Hire all those people to tell the whole world about their choices. Let nobody take your choice. Protect your choice. Die for your choice. And that is where votes came from. Control your vote. Get your PVC. Get ready. Make sure nobody can buy your vote. Make sure nobody can die for your vote. Insist on the use of your vote. Let nobody control your choices. Give them control over their choice. Remind them of their choices. Remind them of their control over their choices. Let them now control what we used to control. Let them now own what we used to own. Let them now be in charge of what we used to be in charge of. We don't need it again. Give them control over their choices. The difference is you control your choices, control the options. So the power centers have now given you control over your choices, of which PVC is an instrument of your choice. Your voting is an instrument of your choice. What have they done? They have now camped in how the options emerge. So if you have to choose between two fools, how powerful is your choice? I have arrested your choice. Not, I gave you control over your choice, but I control the options that you choose from. In other words, the control of the options is automatic control over your choice. But in this sense, I have given you a narrative and a consciousness that has deceived you that you are now in charge because you control your choice. In other words, your very right to choose is the very instrument to perpetuate your slavery. Because I have given you control over your choices now, and you feel happy. Therefore, party administration is by far superior to PVC and to voting. So everybody wants to go and vote, but nobody wants to join the political parties to play party administration, because that is where the candidates emerge. And when we give you two dummies, then you have a choice to make between two dummies. When we give you two fools, then your choice is, your PVC and your vote is going to make a choice between two fools. What is the power of your choice? You see the error? And so the idea that we should go and register, get ready for 2023, it makes sense, but it's a partial capture of what still needs to be understood and the science of what needs to be done, because your control over your choice is the very instrument power centers are using to perpetuate your ignorance and to perpetuate your slavery. We got to grow, man. We got to grow and walk from a helicopter view and understand the plots that will be critical for the type of engagement that can win. And 2023 at best is a beginning. It can't change Nigeria. I say that with all humility, I can prostrate. 2023 is will be at best a fantastic beginning, not our change. If we have more time, I'm going to break Nigeria down for you into 3 generations and where the change will be. But understand that dynamic. Those who control the options now use your choice to perpetuate your slavery. And that is the critical issue. And people do that. Companies do that. It's the same principle that allows Mark Zuckerberg to own Facebook and Instagram. Some people say, well, I don't like Facebook. It's everybody's game. I'd rather stay on Instagram. Well, whether you stay on Instagram or you stay on Facebook, you are still paying Mark Zuckerberg. I prefer WhatsApp. You are paying Mark Zuckerberg. Some people say, well, I don't like Toyota. It's the common car. I'd rather buy Lexus. Well, whether you buy Lexus or you buy Toyota, you are buying Toyota. You are paying the same person. Some people say, well, Peak Milk. Those who own Peak Milk in Nigeria are the owners of 3 Crown. 3 Crown Milk. 3 Crown Milk is for everybody. So for those who say, I don't want everybody's game, I want Peak Milk, they've got you. If you say, I want to play, I can't afford Peak Milk, I will go with everybody's game, 3 Crown, they've got you. You are paying the same person. DSTV, GoTV, the same company. The same company. It's all over the world like that. That is how real power works. That's how real power works. The real power is not partisan. Instead, you take a stake in all the options. So the real power blocs are not PDP, they are not APC. They have a stake in PDP, they have a stake in APC. They control the options so that whichever one you choose them. They are not Republican, they are not Democrats. Whichever one you choose them. They are not conservative, they are not Labour Party. Whichever one you choose them. That is the game we still have to understand. And that is the game our elites have to understand and play hard in. Symposium discussion, that is. But right there, combined with the mass ignorance of the people, which is the type of education we must invest in, that is the equation for the transformation we seek. I will stop there so that we can take some questions and move into some more interactive conversations. I wish I had time. There's so much to, I teach these things for 4 hours, 8 hours, 20 hours, I just finished a 26-hour lecture on Renaissance for Africa. So you must understand that. But I would leave it there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor Kwale. Thank you, Pastor Mrs. Oyemade. Thank you, all the leadership of Covenant Nation for tolerating my difference and enduring the weight of what I bring. I celebrate it. I do not take it for granted. I am humbled here. I do hope we will have a more robust conversation in the Q&A. Thank you very much. Jesus, this moment is yours. Beyond what I've said, take this in, break it down. Visit us in visions, in dreams. As we watch a TV program, watching an advert, send a message. Let us begin to understand and begin to call ourselves to the highest responsibility, inside out, and to be able to see the vistas and the frontiers that are critical for our change. We love you, Lord. Maranatha. Amen. Thank you, guys.
Amen. 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 So much, sir. I mean, to say the least, I had questions that I wanted to ask you because I've been to listen to some of that you've been given over the last 3 months, but after what you just said, I'm not sure that my questions have a place. But first, let's say thank you. I mean, my biggest take is it's not the vote, and you're spot on because that's the most obvious, and that's what many of us have focused on. It's controlling the options and that's how we can make a change. So thank you very much for sharing that clarity. I dare say, and I said this to one of our leaders, that when I listen to Pastor Podju's recent teaching on politics, and I listened to of the thoughts that you shared, they were, really along the same lines, and me, so much comfort, towards this event. But let me ask you one question.
Yes.
On one of those, you said, you made two statements. Every time agitation precedes education, it leads to chaos. Education must precede agitation. The second statement you made is, there are no hoodlums in a third world country. And you shared a specific view on the definition of a hoodlum as it's typically used versus what the reality of a hoodlum is and why we must also think and worry about them in building the Nigeria of our dreams. So my question to you is, within the backdrop of what you just shared with us, could you also help us put these thoughts in context?
Yes. So one of the biggest challenge with the NSAS protest and is the idea of education, the limits of the education that drove the anger, that drove the protest, that drove the agitation. Because by design, you see, and I'm an apostle of design and design thinking, because each one of us only perform to installed capacity. Every instrument in the world only performs to installed capacity. A 40 kVA generator cannot perform like a 128 kVA generator. A 10 kVA generator cannot perform like a 40 kVA generator. A 6-cylinder engine will perform to a level. You see, the idea is all machines, including human machines, only perform to installed capacity. It is the person that is well that can donate blood. No matter how much you care, you have to be well to donate blood. If you go to the hospital and you are HIV positive, and I'm not trying to downplay whatever scenario anyone is going through, I'm dealing with such a challenge. But if you go to the hospital to say, I want to give you all my blood, though I'm COVID-19 positive, but I want to give you all my blood, they will appreciate it. They will hug you. They'll probably write a letter of appreciation for you, probably give you a medal, but they will reject the blood. Why? The blood is incapable of offering support at that level. It is the person that is well that can donate blood. So, and that is capacity. That wellness is capacity, right? A chicken by no determination will never gist or rap. It's not done. Chickens don't rap. If you want to rap, you have to be a human being to do that. So there's just a limit to conditioning of all types, even in the human condition, right? In the jungle condition, in the animal condition, there are limits. So in the same way, the limits of penetration is that it must be guided by consciousness and knowledge. It's because we don't have time today. I can break down for you the different types of revolution in the world, the different types of changes in the world, how a lot of agitation can even make some people popular. It has happened in Nigeria all our lives. A lot of social critics, what they criticize never change. What they are criticizing for 50 years never changes. In fact, it goes worse, but the lives of the critics get better. They get more popular. They get more briefs. If they are lawyers, they get more attention. They get more briefs. They get appointed into public office. All kinds of things happen to them. 60 years is long enough for us to begin to suspect sabotage the next time a critic comes out to criticize government, because we now know that there is a dividend to criticizing government. you are going to get popular, because a cry is strategy. In the same way, running for political office, you can run for political office. It doesn't mean you want to win. There are people I have seen who ran for office. I can say, this guy does not want to, he doesn't even want to win. Somebody said he cannot win. I said, no, it's not about that he cannot win. Even he does not want to win. He knows he can't win, and he's not here to win. What you guys don't know is that ex-presidential candidate is a title that works in the world. There are PowerPoints and honorariums and speaking fees, consulting fees that are being earned internationally when that ex-presidential aspirant is in your profile. Now, that's not what everybody is doing, but that's what most people do. And so we still have to sit down to understand what his agenda is. That could just be his goal, to just upscale his profile and access some communities of development globally to earn that title. The idea is education must precede agitation. Now, the EndSARS protest was terribly ignorant, and I say that with all humility. It was just a recycling of what we have always known, which is the character of protest. Nigeria already has a character of protest on both sides. On the side of the government, we can predict everything the government will do. They have always done it. From Operation Wait Here to, it has always happened, to Ali Must Go, to all of the riots we have seen across, and we know who dies every time is the wretched of the earth. The elites and the kids of the poor don't die in a protest, not in Nigeria. It's no-name boys and girls who pay that price. And they are not martyrs. A lot of them didn't plan to die, because you can't be a martyr if there's no consciousness to exchange your life for a cause. If a stray bullet hits you, even if you are in a protest, it doesn't make you a martyr. If you are given a choice in that moment, you will dodge the bullet and you will not die. In fact, as the bullet hits you, you hate that you are dying. So you are not a martyr. So we have to understand these things and stop paying silly prices. So what I meant is the idea that the people are critically ignorant. You can rally Nigerians around an idea. Look, let me tell you, if a revolution happens in Nigeria tomorrow, and I mean that with all as an example, not that I know I'm aware of anything going on, but assuming it happens, and let's say it's a violent one, people were killed, and then, hey, young people or whoever is now in power, the first 2 weeks, Nigerians will celebrate. Hey, change, 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 change. They will celebrate. You know what's going to happen? 2 weeks after, somebody will just ask, how many Yorubas died? How many Igbos died? How many Fulanis died? It's a Fulani revolution. It's an Igbo revolution. Ooh, it's a Yoruba revolution. You see, you have not united us around an ideology. Therefore, you cannot unlock value that is consistent with such agenda of change from us. Right? There are different ideas like indigenization, indigenization that needs to be killed. As long as you don't kill that, our diversity cannot be blended, right? And that is a subject for another day, right? Because in the United States, two brothers from the same family, the Bush brothers, Jeb and his name just left me, the President Bush. Both of them were governors in two different states. One was governor in Florida, the other one was governor in Texas. From the same family can never happen in Nigeria. You can't have people from the same family. One is governor of Lagos State, the other one is governor of Enugu State. How is that possible? To even be governor of Lagos State, you must pass the test of indigenization, which is an attack on merit. You see? So you want to understand that has to be killed. In America, there's no indigenization. There's only citizenship. There's nobody that is an indigene of anything. And there's no reward. There's no acknowledgement whatsoever for where you come from. The idea is that you are an American, and that's where it starts and ends. Right? So education will solve that. Now, when I say education, please, I don't mean academics. I don't mean formal education. I actually mean informal education. I actually mean consciousness, particularly those that are registered in an ideology, right? Because philosophy has never changed the world. Never. Only ideology has. That's another symposium discussion. But the point is, education is the ability of the human mind, of the human life, of the human spirit to first experience its environment, 2, question it, 3, question it deep enough to find the options that exist in it, and 4, to know the ones to embrace as a matter of supreme importance and urgency. I'll take it again. Education is the ability of the human spirit to question its environment, to experience its environment, to question it deep enough to find the options that exist in it, and to know the ones to embrace as a matter of supreme importance and urgency. You see, by that definition, so many people are not educated, even with a PhD. Why? Because they cannot experience the environment. Where they can, they cannot question it. Where they cannot find the options that exist in it. And where they cannot make the ones to embrace as a matter of supreme importance and urgency. When a man is poor, that is what he cannot do. He can't experience, he cannot question, he cannot identify options, he cannot create options. And so, because the human mind is designed to create options. Options are infinite, right? So, when you cannot create options, it's a loss and a compromise of the human condition. It means you are suboptimal, ab initio. So that is the type of clarity that is missing in the protest. The moment the protest started, you go check my tweet. A lot of people know. I put a tweet out and I put a post out and I said, NSAS is a cry. It's a mere cry. It's not strategic. It cannot lead to any change. I made it clear. And I'm not trying to ascribe anything to myself. But I did say that. And I cannot pretend that I didn't say it. It's a cry. The government does not understand cry, so it attacks it as a strategy, sadly. But the engineers of the cry as well don't know when to stop crying. You just can't be crying and crying and crying. A cry must have a lifespan. Now, if you start by crying, it's legitimate. You can't slap me and tell me how to cry. No. You can't cut me and tell me not to bleed. No. That is oppressive. That's oppressive. If you cut me, I have to bleed. If you slap me, I have to cry. You can't slap me and say, don't cry that way, cry this way. No, you can't tell me how to cry. So if you have respect for the human condition, if you slap me bad enough, you should let me cry. So NSAS is a cry. And because it is a cry, it is legitimate. All cries are legitimate because it's induced, whatever induces it. So that is the legitimacy of the protest. And to that extent, I support it because it is a cry. It's the cry of young people. And they should be listened to. But if somebody takes your phone and you are crying, it's okay to start by crying. But if you really want your phone back, you have to stop crying at some point and say, how do I really get my phone back? You have to stop crying. You just can't be crying and crying. Crying must have a lifespan. Nobody cries. Do you know anybody that cries forever and just crying 10 years after is still crying? Even the person that loses wife or loses children must stop crying at some point and get more strategic. So because we did not understand that this is a cry, we interpreted a cry as a movement. We interpreted a cry. And a lot of people cannot spot the difference. When you understand the contents of movements, of revolutions, of penetration, you can spot it. You know, when Occupy Nigeria began, it began with a logo. Go ask those who know. I put out a post and I put out an article and I said it clearly. Once you have started with a logo, you are not going anywhere. They say Occupy Tunisia. Occupy Tunisia did not begin with a logo. It began with a preserved consciousness that existed for years. And then somebody put himself on fire. And then education met agitation. And it went on. Boom. In this case, there's no education. Some guys have gone to do graphic design, trying to feel that they are protesters and try to communicate a value at some point and then push themselves out. And then what happened? I told everybody that cared to listen. I said, in Occupy Nigeria in 2011 or thereabout, I said, if these guys go beyond Monday, I'll commit suicide. If they go beyond Monday morning, I'll commit. Of course, I'm not committing any suicide. That is how sure I am that this protest has a lifespan. This thing is science. That's my point. You can plot it. You can see that this is just a cry. This is a movement. Oh, this can create change. Why our government and all the security apparatus, the DSS, SSS cannot figure that out, and they just attack somebody who just crying, who has nothing, who cannot lead to anything, or like as if he can. We empower the ignorance of that constituency itself, and we communicate our own ignorance ourselves. It's like two dead bodies trying to enter one coffin. That's how it is. So I insist that there remains an education, and what will change Nigeria is not political parties, it's not Aso Rock, it is the education, the mass education of our people. And when I say education, like I said, I mean consciousness, particularly those that exist within an ideology. That is the way we are going to change Nigeria. When Nigerians understand the difference between good and better, between better and best, right? And they transcend the limits of good and bad and worse, and Nigerians come to a place where they understand evil, the character of evil, the engagement of evil, the partnership with evil. Because God has not killed the devil. Okay? He could have. He could have done that in the. Why did we have to know the devil? He could have killed him before we were born. Because there's no characterization of good and God in a flawed system without an understanding of a parallel universe between good and evil. To hate evil totally and say we don't need it, it's ignorance, it's naivety. That's why even Jesus said, be wise as a serpent. He didn't say be wise as a dove. Be gentle as a dove. A dove is not wise. It's just very gentle. The cunningness of life that compels systems release their value through stratagems, not strategy. Please go and check the true meaning. There's strategy, which is what everybody. Strategy can create win-win, but it is stratagem that changes the world. And stratagem is STRATAGEM. That is a plot. You can't operate stratagem without an identified adversary. So strategy is a plot to create win-win. Stratagem is a plot to defeat an adversary. That is the one operated by God because there's an adversary. And that is the one operated by the devil because there's an adversary. And for everyone who recognizes the stakeholding composition of an adversary, stratagem is no tool, it's your weapon. Stratagem. Okay? So that is the context to the idea that education is needed. We need to get our people into a mode. That is why I respect non-profits, pressure groups, more than political parties. For example, you look at the police force. The policeman is endangered. We don't have time for that. I'm trying to be conscious of time. Maybe another day we'll discuss that. The policeman is endangered. We need about 25 non-profits that are agitating for the welfare, the legacy of the police officer. We need another like 22 non-profits agitating and talking about starting the conversation, pressurizing as a pressure group concerning recycling. Another one talking about waste management. Another set of non-profits, maybe 32 of them, functioning on the dignity and the sanity of their military. I am more interested in those organizations than I'm interested in political parties, because that is where change happens. I would rather have billionaires gather together to fund research, sponsor politicians in politics in the name of driving change, assuming the commitment is equitable and true and authentic. Then I'd rather have them in that direction. Because until the people work, you know what I call it? I call it personal social responsibility. Every Nigerian, every human being owes that to his or her world. Let me pause that thought because there's no time and run into the hoodlum conversation real quick. There's no hoodlum in a third world country. I say that with all humility. And I don't mean that, to the letter, because there's a penitentiary in every country. There are prisons, there are jails in every country. That shows that there are criminals everywhere. But let's go to the meaning of hoodlum. I want to quickly define it. Hoodlum, this is not me, I'm reading. A person who engages in crime and violence, a hooligan or gangster. A person who engages, he didn't say a poor person. He didn't say, somebody living in the ghetto. He didn't say someone who is not educated. He didn't say someone who doesn't have a car, who doesn't live in a good house. So by this definition, a hoodlum can be living in Ikoyi. A hoodlum can be living in VI. A hoodlum can be living, a hoodlum can be the president of a country. A hoodlum can be a governor. A hoodlum can be the CEO of a bank. A hoodlum can be dressed in an Armani #1 suit, driving a Range Rover, keeping a job in a consulting firm. A hoodlum can be living by the beach in Miami. A hoodlum can be anywhere. A hoodlum is a person who engages in crime and violence, a hooligan or gangster. How does this show that poor people are hooligans? In the last 6 months, I've seen confirmed, well-organized hoodlums calling some people hoodlums. This is the chief hoodlum calling somebody else a hoodlum by the definition. So if you engage in crime and violence, you are a hoodlum. We say looters. Oh my God. So what is looting? I don't want to go into that, because by the time we begin to define who is a looter, then you see that a looter can wear a Barbariga and drive a Lexus and is looting massively. You see? Let me pause that. Let me talk about looters. We don't have time for that. Let me just focus on your question, which is the hoodlum. All those guys you call hoodlums, they are not hoodlums. And if they are, then we need to expand that meaning. These are Nigerians who have been left without option, who did not have the education that you and I have. You see, when Kunle Shoriyan is agitated, when Kunle Shoriyan is angry, I write an article, I do a post, I put up a webinar, I put up an ebook or some type, or a podcast, I do something. That is the highest, or I organize, I get people thinking in the direction. That is how I will, or I call for a debate or have a conversation. That is how I will express myself. Why? My education prepared me for that. Now, what is that education? I've been reading comics since I was how old. I've been watching cartoons since I was how old. I've read books. I'm a graduate of a university. I've traveled around the world. I'm living in the United States, in a highly civilized country. I work here. I do my business here, right? I run an office here. I run an entire operation globally. Come on. There's a lot that creates the conditioning and the frame that I express on the mind frame I express on a daily basis. Now, this hoodlum, this so-called hoodlum, does not have that privilege. It does not have the privilege of your education. You see someone is a house help in a home. It's a house help in a home. And this house help, you want her to arrange your house the way you will do. You blame her, raise your voice on her, because you want her to arrange your home and set it up the way you do. You forgot what made you to be able to do that. You have gone to school, you have a master's degree, or you have PhD, you've read comics, you've seen movies, you've gone to Hollywood. Even if you have not gone there physically, you went there through the screen, you've traveled around the world, you are educated, you are exposed, you've read magazines, comics, you've seen cartoons all your life, you are exposed. That is what gave you the knowledge of the difference between white wine glass and red wine glass, between a spoon for ice cream, the one for spoon, the one for soup, the one for tea, the one for, that is what gave you the knowledge of your throw pillows, the one with the one vulture feathers or one ostrich, nose or whatever it is. Your exposure gave you that understanding. This This is a girl that grew up in an amala joint. And they wake her up with curses. Olori buruku otiji, werieda. Olori buruku eshinsun. That is how they wake her up every day. That's where she grew up. Then you bring her into your house at the age of 13, 14, 15, 18, 19, 21, or whatever age, and you dump him there. And then you want him to, or her, to arrange the house the way you do. In other words, you are asking her to think like you. Now, if she can really think like you, will she be a house help? Will she not be a madam somewhere else? Is she not performing to installed capacity? You see how we don't manage our expectations. You see, we did a research some years ago, and we took about 8, I can't remember what number, of area boys, boisterous, loud. We paid them. We explained some things to them, and we blindfolded them and put them in a bus and drove them from Yaba all the way to Sheraton Hotel in Ikeja. And they were blindfolded. All through the journey, they were gisting with each other, making noise, laughing, joking at us, poking at us, just laughing, wondering what was going on, celebrating that they've collected their money, and they were all feeling cool. They were making noise, terrible noise, till they got to Sheraton. Till we took them into the lobby. People were looking at us. They were still like that. We sat them down. Then we removed the blindfold. You know how the lobby of Sheraton is? Yellow lights, gold everywhere, order, white people, all of that. The moment we removed the blindfold, they ordered themselves. They went quiet. They responded to the energy of that environment. They started talking. Nobody told them. They didn't even see us again, because by the time they removed the blindfold, we had disappeared. So they were in an unfamiliar zone. They tried to look for something they can identify with. They didn't find anybody that brought them there. They just started speaking gently. They were orderly. The same boisterous guy that was making all the noise. So order lives inside of him. The accurate arrangement of things, tranquility lives on his inside. But his environment and what is open to him unlocks the wrong energy. They say this uprising, big voter, will bring out the beast in us. The uprising and the chaos of his environment unlocks the wrong energy inside of him. The moment they were dumped into an energy that is contrary to the one they knew, that was orderly, they supply the order. That is the hoodlum you are talking about. Who then was supportive of your cause, who was right in the protest for days and did not rob anybody. Because of welfare economics that was being provided, he was able to behave himself. All of a sudden, there was agitation, there was shooting, the elites ran and were confused, and he ran. Everybody played to installed capacity. And this was an opportunity. You think most of those people robbing and taking the TVs were thugs? No. And guess what? Right here in Dallas, right here in Atlanta, in Chicago, people loot stuff. When there's protest and they break into stores, it's just that there's insurance. That's the difference. So face your problem. Even in the most advanced country in the world, the #1 capitalist country in the world, people loot. You don't see it on CNN, or they don't show you? They break down stores. They carry TV on their heads. They take phones. They rob Apple store. They pick everything and they run away. All of everything. They can pick who they want to pick, but they don't really bother. They just go to insurance. Insurance pays for everything. That is what is missing. And that is what the entrepreneurs in Nigeria suffered for. And it's not the government that paid that money to the people in America when they loot like that. It's the insurance companies. So the idea is those people are the monsters we made. Like the gentleman singing said. They are the demons we created. The attention their individuality deserves. The resources their individuality deserves. How do you handle your security guard? This is what I say to people. You are also culpable. What? You pay your security guard. Tell you this. Anyone that is paying anybody's salary in Nigeria, if you pay anyone less than 35,000 naira, you are an oppressor, you are a slave master. The person you call a staff is not a staff, it's a slave. It's a slave. Because income must do three things at least. It must take care of my feeding, my basic needs, feeding, clothing, going out and coming back. Basic things. Income must take care of it. Number two, income must allow me to save and put something aside. Have enough income to put something aside, no matter how small. 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. I'm able to put something aside. Number three, income must allow me to empower people and bless other people in my area of influence. Somebody I can give 500 naira. Somebody I can, not just my children, because whatever I give my children is duty, not giving. Whatever I give, giving is when you empower a world you do not own. That is giving. When you pay school fees, it's not giving, it's duty. When you empower a world that you own, that is dutifulness. That's not giving. Giving is empowering a world beyond the one you own. That is giving. I should be able to bless somebody. Income that cannot do those three things. What you are doing is you are energizing me for the day of my madness. Yes. And if you cannot pay that money, you should appeal to the person, not harass him and take advantage. I know people who can afford. You see, when I was still in Nigeria, I had a chef, I had two security guards, I had driver, I had a lot of people working around, right? And I used to pay my chef, I remember about 85,000 or something like that. And friends who used to come to my house and they enjoy the delicacy of the chef and all of that. They used to say, why am I paying him that much? These are friends that are richer than me. Pay me, as a matter of fact. And they don't understand. You will ask them why. They will tell you, that's what the people pay now. That's what they pay. So you pay not by your capacity, but by what others are paying in their smallness, small thinking, and human wretchedness. That is what we pay. So that's not right. And we cannot work that way. So I pay to the dignity of the person. And if I cannot afford it, I will appeal and say, look, there's better days ahead. I'm just starting. Understand with me. Let's grow together. I will pay you better. I know you deserve more, but I cannot afford more. Let's work together. That is different. That's negotiation and that's diplomacy. But to harass people based on nothing, and then people say, he has been our house help for 20 years. And after 20 years, he just came one day and robbed us and kidnapped my daughter. Wicked man. For 20 years. No. For 20 years, it was 20 years of torture. Watching you grow, watching your children grow, and watching his own life stagnant. For 20 years, your children were born. Your children traveled abroad. Your children came back. Your children began to give him instruction. Your children, and he's just on one spot. And all you bring is one shimmy or one t-shirt or one shoe or one, and that is all. In other words, you've been adjusting his chain for 20 years. He's still in chain. You have been adjusting it so that he has more comfort. You adjust his chain. You have never removed the chain. The chain is still there. You adjust it, and you fool yourself to assume that he's experiencing freedom. You see, like I told you, the human being is not designed to contain known manipulation. It's not. The day he finds out, it's going to rebel. And what happens is that after 20 years, one day, he discovered that there is a destiny he has to pursue, and he has to do that regardless. It's the same thing that happens when you tell somebody, if you traffic cocaine to Malaysia, we will kill you. It's capital punishment. They will still traffic it. Why? Because rich men die once, poor men die twice. When a man is poor, he's already dead while living. When he dies physically, he's second death. When he now goes to hellfire, he's third death. So in that order, a poor man dies 3 times. Hellfire is his third death. Physical death is second death. While he's alive, he's already dead. So when you threaten a dead man with arrest, who will kill you, you will say, when you did not kill me, what am I? If I traffic this cocaine and I escape, I'm rich. If you catch me, you kill me. Well, maybe I will have killed myself if you didn't kill me anyway. You see? So these guys that you are talking about are already dead men. These are dead men waiting for any opportunity to find what they define as the pursuit of their own meaning and their own dignity. It is wrong to conclude that all of those efforts are nothing but hoodlum behavior. No, that is denying the reality that the attention their individuality deserves, the resources that individually deserves has been denied them for years. And what you then see is the combination of suppressed anger and pain for years. We all need to rise up to a higher level. I call it personal social responsibility. And that is the narrative that is missing in all of what is going on. And all our politicians are saying they forgot that this demonic behavior is the exact type of food we cooked. And we are now shocked at the tastes. Yet we used a set of ingredients that are incapable of producing another taste. There's so much more to explain there, but I'm sure I've overshot the time already.
Thank you so much, sir. First, can we just put our hands together for him? I mean, the audience here has been so engaged with, what you've been sharing. I mean, I've heard you speak about this before, but I'm still shocked. I have to confess, I listen to you quite regularly, and I've heard you share some of these views. But today I heard another one: personal social responsibility. And it's a big takeaway for us. We can keep speaking, but we have overshot the time many times over. I think it's 4:38 a.m. your time. So we cannot even say thank you enough for first sharing what you've shared, giving us of your time, being so open, being so teaching us so much. We want to say thank you so much. We appreciate you. We appreciate your family, your wife, and your son. We're really appreciative of the time you've given to us. God bless you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm grateful as well.
Thank you,
it's
sir.
Mutual. Again, I celebrate the entire Covenant Nation and all those who have joined us from all over the world today. And most critically, I salute the man of God, Pastor Poju and Mrs. Pastor Poju and Pastor Mrs. Oyimade. Thank you so much for all you represent. I celebrate you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, sir. God bless you. We hope you can get some rest now.
Thank you. I'll do just that.
God bless you. God bless you.
Unfortunately, I have another session right away.
Oh, my God. All the best, sir. The Lord is your strength.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think that is such a wonderful segue into our next session. He spoke about personal social responsibility. I will very quickly introduce the FEED project. These are a group of young professionals just like ourselves. After the FEED process, the SARS process, and if the What Media team was on the presentation as I introduced, after the NSARS process, they asked themselves, what can we do? And they, have started a project with the aim of listening to their needs of their community. I will introduce Lea Adigun, who is the representative of Project Feed. He's joining me on stage now. What they've done is try to see what the needs of their community is or are, and are working steadily in the little way that they can to meet the needs of their community with an objective. So they're not just doing this blindly, with an objective to build capacity that they can call on at the very right time. Mr. Wale Adigun, we welcome you to the stage. Thank you. So the floor is yours. Tell us about FEED.
Good morning, everyone. So, professionals together after the end, a lot of the people involved in those at the forefront of the protesters. One thing that made the protest beautiful, as we saw, were people every day. So we thought, can we continue with it? People are but just going, leading them, how can we develop our country? So we came up with Project. So feed, empower, and develop. Feed aspect is, the plan is a soup kitchen with the capacity to feed at least 1,000 people daily. Empowerment, empower the communities we go, identify skills, be able to put them in employment and put them into, ensure they get commensurate compensation for the work they do, soft training and training for them, education to educate the citizens on their rights, their constitutional rights especially, the allocation for them and how it is being, then develop the communities that we're targeting to ensure that they have amenities. The aim of Project Feed, first drive Saturday on the 28th at its in Lekki. We fed 500 people in that community, and we fed 500 people at another location. I will go into details at that. We spent about 800,000. We empowered 2 caterers. So before we did that, we had gone to scouts at the community, spoken to the ballet at that community, just to let them know, okay, this is what we want to come and do, and it's not just a one-off. We want to come and impact that community. So that's pictures from our, this second picture where you see, we have 2 people who, so one interesting thing from these is a lot of these and young adults necessarily hungry. They are looking, we support them. How can we develop them? How can we empower them? We have Sheo Fumi, Chiamaka came from the East. She used to work with her mother, but since she came, she found it hard to get work, and COVID-19 make things have been hard. She used to beat for fashion houses, but due to the pandemic, business has been as strong as possible. And she is as well. She's also host events. So how can we empower them? Some very key takeaways from our end there. So it's true. A lot of these people, yes, they are, but they are not down. Empower them. So the aim of it isn't just key or the end goal is us to replicate the model across the country. So that's what exactly we're so I would say fundraising on the second quarter, we've raised over 2.7 million. So going forward, I think we'll just show the social media handles. You can visit us on www.feedlagos.com. And please partner with us. We want to partner. We want you to partner with us to educate and to empower people. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, I mean, we at the Covenant Community Group are hoping to do next year, which will start next year, including our curriculum pick how to develop to help your community, help the people around you. Many of us want to assistance, many of us want to, maybe we don't know how. So one thing we're going to do is include the curriculum topics, engaging people like Wale, they'll explain to us how the project feed. And we we can decide to partner with them, join the project feed, or we can decide our own project feed in communities around us. He go too far away from where they were. On their drive, that literally is the next community to where he lives. Is it the same Lekki? But it's a totally different reality when you go to those areas. And we have similar areas around us, not so far from where we live, but it's a different reality that they have today. So we will progress with this next semester, and we are hoping to have our own Covenant Community Group feed drive, where we can all act as volunteers in helping those in the communities around us. Thank you very much, Wale. Thank you so much. We appreciate
Thank you
your presence here. So we'll move very quickly into the next panel session. I'll introduce the panel and then they'll come to the stage. It's the panel led by the legal professionals, and they're going to deal with a very critical topic: our responsibilities as citizens in this society, and how legal professionals can also, add to or help build the Nigeria of our dreams. The moderator will come to the stage, and if they will kindly come up, and then we'll introduce them. Thank you.
Good morning, our dear audience, and welcome to the Legal Practitioners Panel session. So, I'll start with introducing myself. My name is Onowe Ajulo, and I'll be moderating this session. So, I'll be calling up the panelists to be on stage with me before I speak about the topic. So, our first panelist today is Mrs. Oyeyemi Aderibigbe. Please welcome her. Our second panelist is Mr. Folarin Oloyede. This is Mr. Emeka Lawrence Ihibi. You're very welcome. Okay, great. So, some of us here are leaders in the Legal Practitioners Community Group of the Covenant Nation. As we might have heard, the community group initiative in the Covenant Nation is about bringing people together of similar interests to ensure that they build a community and there's peer-to-peer mentoring. So just so you know who we are and what we do. So I'll be going into the topic. We're speaking on a very important topic, as our leader had previously said. We're speaking on a topic called the role of the lawyer in driving economic and social development. So we have this amazing panel of people to us today. As the keynote speaker had spoken, he spoke about the theme of the event is building the Nigeria of our dreams. And okay, people have different perspectives to lawyers. Some people like lawyers, some don't really like lawyers. But I mean, recent events would show us that lawyers are very important, right? So we need to get it right as legal practitioners, and our panelists here today are here about how we can. The panel will be in two sessions. The first part of the session will be talking generally the role of the lawyer in driving economic social development from the perspectives of our three panelists. And then in the second part of the session, we'll be taking questions that had been previously sent in. Okay, so without much ado, I'll introduce our panelists. So the first person beside me, as I've already said, is Mrs. Oyeyemi Aderibigbe Ni Emmanuel. Oyeyemi is a senior associate at the Templars Law Firm, Lagos, Nigeria. She's also the chairman of the Young Lawyers Committee of the Section on Business Law. Oyeyemi's expertise lies in the area of regulatory compliance, intellectual property, and employment law. And she has advised several blue-chip companies in these areas. She'll be speaking today from the perspective of regulatory compliance and corporate social responsibility in Nigeria's business environment. To my far right left is Mr. Folarin Oloye. Folarin is the managing partner of Horizon solicitors, and he also serves as the legal counsel to Group Pharma, an agro-investment company based in Lagos, Nigeria. Folarin has vast experience in dispute resolution and corporate commercial law practice, and today he will be speaking to us from the area of dispute resolution. And then we have with us Mr. Emeka Lawrence Ihebi. Emeka is the head of legal corporate CS MF Limited. He is also the editor of Nigerian Revenue Law Reports and Africa Tax Law Report. Emeka is well versed in the area of tax law and practice, and he has advised several local and international clients on same. Emeka will be making his contributions from the taxation perspective. So, like I said already, we'll be speaking in, the session will be in two parts. This first part of the session will be speaking, each panelist will be speaking from their area in the light of the theme for the event, building the Nigeria of our dreams. What role do we have to play? So I'll start with Oyeyemi.
Thank you very much, Honore. Thank you to the community of corporate professionals at Covenant Christian Center for inviting me. I must say, I'll be remiss if I do not say thank you on a different level. The Covenant Nation is home for me, and I am so pleased and grateful to come home and speak to my people. I'm going to be speaking, when I was listening to Mr. Kunle Shorinyo, we literally could have been speaking of the same script, because what I had titled my little discussion was answering society's call. As lawyers, and I'm not going to just speak as a lawyer, because we are lawyers, and then we also service businesses in Nigeria. And a lot of the economic activity is actually premised on the advice that we give, either from a regulatory perspective or even from just general strategy. A lot of work that businesses do involves the advice of lawyers. So I'd be looking at it from both the lawyer's perspective and even from how we impact the businesses that we deal with. From a lawyer's perspective, a lot of people I hear say that Nigeria is over-lawyered, that there are just too many lawyers. And my own perspective is that we're a very under-serviced and under-lawyered community. When I want to check the heartbeat of society from time to time, I look at what the comedians are saying, because I find that comedy sort of mirrors what is going on. And if you're like me, you would notice that there are two conversations that are literally the order of the day with a lot of the comedians. One, discussions about prophets, and two, discussions about lawyers. And so for me, right now, I won't be talking about prophets. Right now, there is a very big gap that lawyers need to fill in society. And we need to do it urgently. You would see from the EndSARS protests the role that lawyers played. In 2 weeks, 600 to 800 lawyers were gathered, and they were working through the courts, through the prisons, to get citizens who had been arrested out. I think if we have any case study we want to pick, that is one that we can easily pick, study, and say, okay, what is our role? What do we want to do? And how do we want to take things forward? Corporate social responsibility from a lawyer's perspective has two ends. There is providing quality legal services to your society. And then there is protecting the public goods like justice, the rule of law. And research has shown that because of competition, globalization, and the fact that lawyers need to earn their wage, the public good aspect of the work that we do has been largely neglected. And we can see that in how our society responds to basic issues. Even judges today, seeking to assert their rights over their property, will call the military before they go to court. That is a sick society. It means that our legal solutions are just in our minds, because a functioning, properly, legally served society will have a legal solution as the first point of call. But now, when people want to solve their problems, they don't go to law, because law has failed them so many times. They go to either, okay, how can we settle? Or how can we be violent? How do we show ourselves? And if we have gone that bad that even the people in the system of justice, the justices, the lawyers, the leaders, are no longer seeking legal solutions, then it means that we need to rejig the entire system. When I look at that, there are two things that are even more painful. Is the fact that our law will not develop. The development of law happens when law is tested. So people go to court, a precedent is set, the culture changes. Another precedent is set, the culture changes. When the culture changes, the law changes. And that is why we are in 2020, and most of our laws are still laws of 18-something, 1970-something, 1960-something. Even our corporate law was only recently changed after 30 years. Everything we're seeing is explained in those indices. We don't need to look too far. We don't need to check research to see that the work that needs to be done is a lot on the part of the lawyers. Now, when I think of solutions, I think of how we are even organized as lawyers. How do we resource the legal services industry? What does our law school look like? What do our universities look like? What does our curriculum look like? When we look at our curriculum, most of our universities do not even know what tech law is. And we're looking at a business environment and an economic environment that is seeking to pivot into technology to grow. The lawyers that are going to come out can't even serve that community. So whoever is leading, whoever is organizing, whoever is seeking to do anything within the next few years within the legal services industry needs to look there. How are we resourcing? What can I do to change how we resource? In more advanced societies, most of the law firms have graduate partners. What those graduate partners do is that they focus on campuses and law schools and develop programs that teach those students, as they are learning the basics of law, the realities of the business world as it is today. Such that at the time when they come out of school, they already have knowledge of the issues. They're able to just segue in. Here, a law student has never done anything that is related to the work that they are required to do on day one. And we expect miracles. It's not going to happen. So I would say anyone who is seeking to contribute to the solution needs to develop a program that would change our system of education. The NBA, which is the formal self-regulation or the way we are organized to self-regulate, is doing several activities in that regard. But I think that our law firms, our business organizations must take up that activity to change the way our lawyers are even trained. We are not trained for the realities of the work that is needed to grow Nigeria's economy or to service the needs of Nigeria's development. And that is an urgent call that we all need to answer. Secondly, I would say that over time, we've abused the word corporate social responsibility. A lot of us, either as lawyers or even when we advise businesses, do it to reduce our tax obligations, to show mercy, to be seen as empathetic businesses, socially, we pull up all sorts of strategy statements. We are ethical, etc. I think that the call in Nigeria today has gone beyond just corporate social responsibility. I think we now need to adopt something I call corporate activism. I think that our businesses need to look into their immediate environment and adopt solutions that feed those immediate needs. And I would give an example. Empathy can be emotional, but a doctor will not have emotional empathy. A doctor would have cognitive empathy. He knows what's wrong with you. He feels your pain, but he will solve it based on what is needed. So he will give you the drugs, however painful. He will conduct the surgery, however tedious, because he has studied. I think our businesses, our law firms need to actually study our environment. And if I want to preempt that study, I would say the biggest need in our society today, beyond anything, is education. As Mr. Shoriyo was saying, we called certain people hoodlums. We said they came, but those are products of the investment of Nigeria in its people. Every single one of those people is a product of our society. A lot of us have children that we send to schools, private schools, better schools. The truth is, our children will still be forced to encounter all of those, quote unquote, 98% that are not able to escape the destruction. So if any corporate, if any law firm, if any organization, if any individual is looking to solve solutions or to create solutions for our social development, I think that we all need to look into that educational space, our curriculum, our resources, our educational infrastructure, and there needs to be like a total 360 or 180, as they say, redirection of our spending into that space. Because it is these human resources that will create social development. It is these human resources that will turn the tide. It is these human resources that will come tomorrow and say, employ me. And that is a fundamental problem. You know how many millions organizations are spending every day to try to sort out recruitment problems? If we focus on the root issues and we spend there, or we create solutions for that part of our society, I think all these symptoms that we see everywhere would naturally fade over time. So that I don't take, I wasn't consciously thinking of how many minutes I had, but I think I've set the stage for conversation.
Thank you so much, Oyemi. You said so much, and there's so much I'm taking from what you said, moving from just corporate social responsibility to corporate activism. And you spoke about the fact that everybody is a stakeholder in the development of all the citizens in Nigeria. So it's not just, it's not my child, though, so I don't care, but your child is going to interface, your business is going to interface with everyone in the society, so you have a responsibility, and that was great for me. So to move the conversation forward, Oyemi spoke about dispute resolution and the fact that Nigerians don't have confidence in our dispute resolution system. So that's why you find people running to the police to solve every single thing. I mean, I've been in a police station once, and the lady said, somebody took my bag and I couldn't find my money there, and so come and help me find my bag. And I'm like, is that a policeman's job to help you find your missing bag? But that's the way it is. So Folarin, speak to us on dispute resolution and how changes in that space can help development in Nigeria.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Onowe, for this. And Oyeyemi, thank you so much for setting the road for this conversation. So, the Nigerian Law School has produced a total of about 70,000 lawyers. So, that includes those who have died. So, what we're talking about now is just maybe 50,000 lawyers. So, we're talking about what we, the 50,000 lawyers, can do to impact the economy of Nigeria, to bring about a country that we truly desire. You know, we have over 200 million people in Nigeria as of now. So, what can lawyers do? The blame can go around to government and all of that, but we are looking at what the lawyers can do in the aspect of dispute resolution. Now, there are various means of dispute resolution when you're talking about businesses now. The one people at most want to avoid is litigation, which is the most powerful, because you could go for arbitration or mediation, and then the party that is not satisfied can still go to court. And because of the kind of system that we have, even though the matter had been, even though parties had agreed that arbitration would be their forum for dispute resolution, someone can still go to court to shut down the whole thing, or to basically avoid complying with the arbitral award. So I'm looking at what we can do as lawyers to ensure that disputes are well resolved and businesses can progress as they should. Because when businesses do fine, the economy will do fine. So my approach is basically the best way to resolve disputes is to avoid it. So how do people avoid disputes? How can businesses avoid disputes when they don't go to lawyers? Now, I'm not talking about the big corporates. They are well serviced. They have tons of lawyers working for them. But we know these big corporates and the established businesses are just a fraction of the economy. So if we were talking about real change, we want to bring about real change to the economy, we have to be looking at the SMEs, the vast informal businesses. I was talking to myself that there should be a mechanism whereby a food vendor or a barber can consult a lawyer. If we want to bring about real changes as lawyers, I know that a fellow lawyer will be asking me, I have bills to pay, I have bills to settle, yeah, but I believe that if we are able to impact our economy, which we are also a part of, we are going to be better off. So how do we solve disputes? Like I said, you try to advise clients on how to avoid those disputes happening. Most disputes are not necessarily mischievous. They are not as a result of the other party instigating it or not wanting to go ahead. But most of them just happen because they didn't envisage things like that happening. So lawyers need to start making legal service accessible to the vast businesses in the economy, you know. And how do we do that? How can a barber be able to access a lawyer? He ends his take-home a day is maybe just maybe 3,000 naira, you know. So how is he going to be able to consult a lawyer from that? I think there's a solution that can work. One of which is most of these tradesmen and artisans, they have unions. In fact, Nigeria is perhaps where almost everybody belongs to an association, or some. Before you know it, there's an association. So I believe lawyers can work with associations and clubs and groups of these people. So you're working with the entire group head. So there are some common legal issues that come around, and then you can provide them. And then lawyers must begin to. There's a book titled "Where There Is No Doctor," basically stating things that you can do by yourself. Lawyers need to start exploring some do-it-yourself legal stuff for businesses. Really, there are some basic contracts that if these businesses we're talking about are able to put them together, the disputes that subsequently arise won't arise. So you provide the support in that aspect and that goes back to what Oyemi was saying about training, about education. So you go the extra mile of maybe you have a seminar and then take people through the basics of a contract. Yeah, these are the basic things. And then to latch on what technology is offering, we all know now that you can enter into a contract through WhatsApp messages. One basic thing you need to teach people about business is that all your transactions, as much as possible, no matter how fast they are, try to have it in writing. Maybe it's by text message or by WhatsApp or something in writing. Yeah, the people I'm addressing now, the common businesses, maybe they may not be doing emails and all of that. But if you have it in writing that, okay, you are going to give me this, you are going to give me this, you are going to give me this in a so time for so amounts. So the contract is clear and disputes can be avoided. And something else that I believe that lawyers can do to bring about change, to bring about economic improvements is that lawyers need to we lawyers need to pull out of that island that we stay. You know, most lawyers are kind of isolated. Most lawyers just talk law. But we often struggle to relate those laws we're talking about to people's businesses. So lawyers need to start understanding businesses and then start getting involved. Now we're talking about bringing about change to the economy. And if you ask a typical lawyer that, okay, what do you think the economy of a country is? How would you describe it? I myself, I just thought, it is this, that. So I had to look it up okay, what does it even mean? So so the economy of a country is basically the state of the production of goods and services and consumption and then supply of money. So when you understand that, you begin to key in better, and then you find the loopholes, you find the positions where you can occupy to impact businesses. Thank you so much, Anoe.
Okay, thank you so much for Lauren. I like your point. You built upon Oyemi's point on education and the fact that education is the way out for us as lawyers, educating ourselves, educating the society on our legal rights and obligations. So I'm moving to Emeka now. So Emeka is speaking to us from tax, and they've all said, well, speaking on living beyond yourself as a professional and being involved with the public good. So Emeka, tax is about the public good. How would tax help in this conversation on building the Nigeria of our dreams?
Thank you very much, Onowe. Tax and what it will do. Now, the truth of the matter is this: first of all, the way I want to look at it is, first of all, as a human being. As a human being, I remember there is one of these schools that I attended, and the motto is for character and for learning. I don't think it's either Unilag or UI. For character and for learning. And it is not a misplaced statement. It is not a mistake that character came first before learning. As a lawyer, first of all, I'm a human being. So the question is, who am I? Who are we? Who are you, first of all? What are you made of? What are your values? Then, that is about my character. The next thing is learning. I studied law. So if I am going to be a good lawyer, then my character must be good. if I don't have good characters or values, if I'm not a good person, it will be difficult to be a good lawyer, really, and be able to play this role that we're talking about. All right, so that is the first thing we need to look at. And if you ask me today, our value system is very low. It seems from experience as a tax lawyer, everybody is trying to see how to play or game the system or get out of carrying out their responsibility. And unfortunately, of all the contributions that you have to make as a citizen, tax is the only one that has an element of, how do I put it now, patriotism in it. In that, the law mandates you to pay, and in paying, the person you are paying it to is not mandated to give you anything in return. In other words, even if you are compliant in paying your taxes, the government is not mandated ordinarily to tar the road that leads to your house. So you see there's a kind of selflessness that is involved. There's a kind of, it's not a quid pro where what they put in a give and take kind of thing. So it will take a man or a human being or person of character to be able to say, I want to pay to someone who is like because like someone said once, the government is like a sleeping partner in your business. You have a business and the government is not giving you anything, he has never done anything for you, and at the end of the month or at the end of the year, the government comes with a basket and say you must pay. It looks like a legalized robbery. So, but first thing is, what is our value? Then, as a lawyer, I am a human being first. I owe responsibility to myself. I owe responsibility to my client who is asking me to advise me. That client could be a taxpayer or a tax authority. Then I also owe a responsibility to the whole public in ensuring that in rendering the advice that I'm giving, I'm doing it correctly. And happily, unlike litigation, law is statutory. In other words, everything about law is written. It reminds me of a particular, I think a book of Nine where they say it is written. Everything about law, about tax is written. So there is nothing like any hidden thing about it. And that's one thing, that's the reason why I love that area of law. So if it is not there, it is not there. And if it is there, it is there. And again, the laws that impose these taxes also provides for responsibilities on the part of the taxpayer, their rights, responsibilities on the part of the tax authorities, responsibilities for even the consultant, the tax lawyer that is advising, Unfortunately, there is no responsibility for the government. In other words, the government is not obligated to actually use the tax that it collects to do a particular thing, Now, the first thing, as a tax lawyer, what do? I must make sure, since I said that the taxes are statutory based, as they put it, to make sure that if I'm advising the tax authority, to make sure that they comply with those laws as it is. So, what is complying with them? Ensuring that they respect the right of the taxpayer. That's the first one. Ensuring that they respect the rights of the taxpayer, that when the taxpayer is being assessed, it must be proper, correct. Because this thing is like mathematics. It's 2 plus 2 is equals to 4. Or 3 plus 1 is equals to 4. So, a situation where a person has not made up to 1 million naira in a year, and they are imposing a tax assessment of 1.2 million, then we know that is a problem. Or even after imposing it, you don't give him the opportunity to come and contest it. Or when he's contesting it, you don't remind him that these are your rights. These are the things that you can do. This is how you can approach us. This is the office where you go. Things as simple as that. You don't give him that opportunity, then there's a problem. And again, for the taxpayer too, you have obligations. I advise, these are your obligations. You must register for tax. If I take a poll here now and say, how many of us pay our taxes? We'll be surprised at the result. So these are you must register, you must self-assess yourself, keep a record. Tax dwells more on two things, record and data. Keep your record properly. It doesn't necessarily have to be, if you, for example, if it's more like a foreign was, if it's a small business, it don't necessarily have to have anything elaborate. Just a book. Or if you can't do it, get someone who is a bit understanding about it. Just write it down. I sold 10 naira bolly today. Put it down, 10 naira bolly. Simple. Things as simple as that can help a lot. Because at the end of the day, these people, they have your records. Even if you say, okay, I'm hiding it away from them, I'm putting it in a bank, they have access to your bank accounts. They can do so many things. The tax authority has so much power that we don't know about. So they must comply, you know. Then, also as a lawyer, as a society, I must ensure that those who are paying this, you know, to the government, they should be able to see what they are paying for. You know, the truth of the matter is this. Every human being, I've come to notice that every human being is a business person. If I call one or two of you and say, look, if you have been putting some money into a business and you are not getting a return from it, will you continue pumping your money inside it? I don't think there's anyone here who will agree that he will continue pumping money. Even God himself said, I planted a tree, I put the manure around, and it's not producing fruit. Cut it down. That was the first thing he said. So, also, I as a taxpayer, if I'm paying and I'm not seeing the result of what I'm paying, you know, it is discouraging. I may be discouraged from paying. So, unfortunately, again, in our laws, there is no provisions mandating the government to say, look, okay, your taxes, so this is what I use it to do. The revenues you get there, you mix it up with other ones, and then you share it. So it becomes difficult to monitor the product of our taxes. But we can all see it. If you call one or two Nigerians and ask them today, is the government really managing our tax revenue? They will tell you no. So it behoves us, those of us, especially the lawyers who are advisors to this government, to tell them, look, make sure that what you are getting, that you create something tangible that people can feel or see. You know, because there is something we call, how do I put it now, strategic communication, where the way it's not just about saying things, the way you say it too matters a lot. So in a situation where people feel that the government or those in authority are taking them for granted, even if that government is working and they are not communicating properly what they are doing, it becomes a problem. The man on the street will go home thinking that this government is not doing anything, they're looting our money. So it also behoves on those who are utilizing this to find a way of informing those that they are collecting that money from, that these are what I am using it to do. All right? So, in conclusion, I don't need to talk much. In conclusion, the duty of a lawyer, a tax lawyer, in building the nation dwells more principally on ensuring that the laws are followed, the rule of the law are followed in taxation. Everybody must play his part. You must first of all assess people properly. Don't over-assess, you know. And also for people, you must know your right. You must know when you are being overtaxed. You must be able to determine the aspect of your income that is actually supposed to be subjected to tax. And that calls for enlightenment. And one of the things I do on social media and on a blog is to, just because I noticed that I once had a discussion with a bolly seller, and I said, do you pay your tax? She said, yes. He said that some guys come here every afternoon to collect about 500 naira from her. As far as she concerned, she's paying tax. And I said, no, that's not tax, you're not paying. And she nearly fought with me. He said, what do you mean I pay? I said, no, but that money is not going to the government. But as far as she's concerned, she's paying. So she needs to understand who to pay to, how do you calculate it? Because at the end of the day, honestly speaking, it may be that bole seller, if you calculate all her revenue at the end of the day, it may be that she's among those who are exempted from paying anything at all. Or even if she's going to pay, it's going to be very minimal. You know? And that is one of the revelations. The Nigerian tax system is progressive. Those who earn more pay more. Those who earn less pay less. But we all don't know. As far as we are concerned, we are paying too much because the people don't know. So it calls for education. And that's one of the things I took it upon myself to do, especially every Thursday.
Thank you, Emeka.
You know.
So you have so much to share with us. Thank you so much. But we're actually running out of time. So I'm just going to take one question each from you guys. You've already spoken to some of the questions that have already been sent in. So I'll ask Oyemi, can you shed light on, someone wanted to know, what made you specialize in corporate regulatory and compliance practice?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, my journey into corporate law was not necessarily intentional. I dreamt of being a Ganita Fahimi type lawyer, advocacy, litigation, and then I got an opportunity for law. But I sort of feel like all lawyers play the same role. All lawyers are lawyers. You just specialize in certain aspects. You're a legal technician, but beyond your legal your critical skills in the areas, as a lawyer, you still have similar roles across the different things that you do. So as a corporate lawyer, I advise on corporate law, but in the course of doing that, I would speak to issues of justice. I'll speak to issues of the rule of law. I'll speak to issues of responsibility and all of that. And I think that I feel like that's more of the focus that we should all have, that overriding duty to serve our society beyond the core of what we do from day to day.
Thank you. Following quickly, people talk about mediation and alternative dispute resolution. Can you tell us how you think that can help in driving social justice?
Okay. The most applicable dispute resolution in businesses, like I earlier said, is arbitration. And foreign businesses coming to Nigeria, and even some Nigerian businesses, choose to have the arbitration in London. Why? Because if you do your arbitration here in Nigeria, to enforce it and to put it into effect could take years. There are arbitral awards that people have taken to the Nigerian court, and things are there for like 5-6 years. So I believe that mediation, which should ordinarily precede arbitration, should be well explored, and more importantly, lawyers should desist from frivolous suits that frustrate these easy methods of dispute resolution. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we're out of time. Emeka, please close us. Give us your closing remarks on tax. Just close us, a closing remark.
All right.
Last
Like I said earlier, tax is statutory. It is easy to determine. You can always find what you are looking for in the laws. In fact, to show you how important it is, in terms of dispute resolution and tax, resolving tax disputes, the government, seeing how important it is, set up what we call tax appeal tribunal. It's open to everybody. You can come there by yourself, or you can get a lawyer, and disputes there are resolved very quickly. And doesn't take time, less than 1 year, and you are out of it. And the next thing I will say in conclusion is to implore us. I know we are not seeing, you may say you are not seeing what the government is doing with tax, but one of the ways to own a government, to own a country, is actually to pay your tax. Perhaps the reason why the voices are not so loud is because fewer people are paying. and they are paying for so many who are not paying, because whatever it is that you see, whatever the destruction, whatever anything you will enjoy in the society, somebody is paying it somewhere. If you are driving on a very good tarred road and you're not paying your taxes, remember that somebody somewhere is paying it. That is why you drive. There's nothing that is free. So, like I asked Folani recently today, I say, how many people are even paying tax? If you go to Google, they say it's 19 million in Nigeria that are registered taxpayers. And out of those 19, not all of them are paying. And we are about 200 million. Assuming that out of the 200 million, 100 million are not working. And we have like 80 million working. Out of the 80 million that are working, only 19 million are paying. And 19 million, that is the whole country. Lagos is about 20 million. What does that tell you? And in Lagos, we don't have up to 1 million taxpayers. So it means people are not really paying enough. And the argument is that we don't see what is being done. But perhaps what we are contributing is not enough to go round. So it begins to spread thin. Of course, there may be mismanagement here and there. But when you pay, for example, as I pay, every time I enter a pothole, I feel the pain. Because I will tell myself, I paid that this thing should be well taken care of, but it's not being taken care of. I begin to ask questions. When you pay, you will ask questions. Because where your money is, your heart will be there. So the best way to own a government actually is to pay. Then when you pay, you can actually stand boldly and begin to demand that the government does what it's supposed to do with the tax you are paying. So that's the thing I will encourage us to. If we are not paying, let others to pay. Pay up your taxes, and then you can hold the government responsibly, boldly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Emeka. We're out of time. Thank you so much, our audience, for listening to us. I know AME, please, wanted to say something for 30 seconds.
Well, I didn't know that I had the opportunity, but it was just one last comment beyond the way we are structured. I think that as businesses and as law firms and lawyers, I think one way that we can quickly solve our problems is also to change a critical part of how we are structured. Most of our businesses deal right now on hierarchy. So management is centered in a particular point, and management feeds direction to the system. I found a more interesting system that I think we can mix with hierarchy, and it's called holacracy. And what it does is that it creates a system of centralized governance where you can get feedback from the bottom, from the middle, and create a governing process that everybody follows. So it's actually a corporate governance innovation. And I think that a lot of organizations, law firms, and entirely our system needs to adopt that, because it would help us to accelerate our growth and innovation as a country, economy, and a society. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to all our panelists. It's been a privilege to have you all here with us out of your busy schedules. Thank you so much. We'll be handing over to... Okay.
Our legal professionals for the deep insights shared. Very insightful, very much appreciated. Thank you to the audience as well for participating. We'll be moving on to our next panel, the Sales and Marketing Professionals panel. The moderator will come up now and introduce the members of the panel. Let's put our hands together for him as he climbs the stage.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Good to be here this afternoon. While growing up, I grew up with a narrative that the Nigerian story is one of we having vast resources and we have little or nothing to show for it. However, as I started getting older, I also realized that each and every one of us has a role to play. The recent happenings in Nigeria has shown that each individual or each citizen, and even the corporate bodies, we have major roles to play in this nation in driving that new Nigeria story. To do justice to this, I won't be speaking alone. My name is Benga Folorunso from the sales and marketing community, and I have a very fantastic panel to drive this conversation. I will call up my panelists this very minute, and I will start with Seun Adaramola. Seun Adaramola is a business leader, a marketing enthusiast, and creative storyteller. She is the marketing director at Visa West Africa. Seun has multiple years of experience in marketing and business development. She has helped companies grow their market share and deliver revenue growth. Outside the world of marketing, she serves as a career and self-development coach, helping people to navigate their career path, making right career decisions, and guidance on how to fully harness their skills and potentials. Seun believes that everyone should be the best version of themselves. Please, can we help welcome Seun this afternoon?
Thank you, Benga. Nice to be here.
Good to have you. My next panelist is Mr. Louis Ekome. Louis Ekome is an experienced and dynamic sales and marketing management strategist with 20-plus years record of achievement and success, driving multi-million euro sales growth. Louis has been privileged to provide award-winning sales and marketing leadership in highly competitive markets across East and Anglophone West Africa for global pharmaceutical and health organizations like Janssen Silag, a Johnson & Johnson company, Sanofi, and IQVIA, a Fortune 500 company. Louis possesses an empowering leadership style and invests his time building people and motivating professionals to maximize their levels of productivity. He also finds time to read books, play tennis, organize cycling tournaments, and has been involved in several charity projects. Can you please help me welcome Mr. Louis?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Last but not the least, I would introduce my last panelist, Ndidi Ukaonu. Ndidi is an experienced banker with over 20 years industry experience in the corporate, retail, and commercial banking sectors. She's a driven, determined, passionate, and results-oriented person with strong skill sets in change management, business strategy, and creative analysis. She is currently the divisional head South-South at GT Bank PLC, one of the leading banks in Africa. And she has a slogan, impossible is nothing. Can you please help me welcome Ndidi this afternoon?
Thank you.
All right, so we move straight into our conversation. And the very first question I would ask is, let me start with Ndidi. Ndidi, what's your opinion of the Nigerian story? And do you think there is need for us to change the story?
Thank you for having me here again. The Nigerian story is the Nigerian story. You know, we're just at a point in time in a continuum. And we tend to forget that every story, what makes every story beautiful is the fact that there are highs and lows. And the Nigerian story is not different. There have been highs at some point. There are now lows. Okay? We then now decide what is the next thing. Should there be highs and consistent highs? And how do we work to get higher and higher and higher? But we must be mindful, every beautiful story is a checkered story.
Thank you very much. Seun, what's your take on the Nigerian story?
Thank you, Benga. Definitely, yes, there is a Nigerian story. And I would like to use the analogy of a coin. The head, which is the most visible part, if I look at Nigeria today, is the fact that we've got a lot of bad stories out there about Nigeria. But however, in rewriting the story, what we need to do is to flip the coin and begin to show for the positive sides of Nigeria. Nigeria is a great nation. We have a lot of intelligent people. We have a lot of hardworking people. Nigerians are very hospitable. But all the things you see out there in the media is basically talking about Nigeria being a corrupt nation, is filled with fraudsters and all that. And as marketing and sales professionals, this is where we come in, because we are the ones that will help to amplify and change that narrative. We are closer to the media. Yes, there's been a lot of rebranding projects in Nigeria done by the government, which has failed. But we are not talking about the government anymore. We are talking about the role of the corporate individuals, the role of the corporate sector in actually rewriting the story. So we need to look for a way to begin to amplify these stories. If you look at a lot of Nigerians out there, they are doing great jobs, but nobody's talking about that. We have the likes of the Ibukwan Woshika, the likes of the Tara Durotoya and all that. We need to bring these stories out. Also, even a lot of corporate bodies out there are doing a lot of great jobs. If you look at the SME space, the corporate bodies have done so many good works in trying to empower SMEs. Fintechs also, there's so much going on within that space. So how do we as sales and marketing professionals begin to project this narrative and begin to put Nigeria on the map and start showing the positive side of this nation? Thank you.
Fantastic. Mr. Louis.
All right. So I think if you ask the average Nigerian, and you say, tell me something about Nigeria. So on the average, there's something you're going to see. So if you are talking to a Nigerian, it's most likely that the person is going to try to say things the way it is. So he says, let me tell you ho-ha. And when somebody says, let me tell you ho-ha, it means that the person is going to talk about a lot of negative things, But on the other side, if you are talking to maybe somebody who is a foreigner, somebody from another country, most likely you want to tell the person, maybe about the best things about your country, the nice things about your country. So for example, if we're talking about Nigeria, we will say it's a good nation. We have abundant and lots of abundant natural resources, for example. But what you're going to see is that ideally, in any country, where you have abundant resources, that means that the primary and the secondary sectors of the economy should be very dynamic, employing a lot of people. But you don't have that, in our country presently. So when you are talking about the country, you want to say some nice things. So, but I think an essential thing here is that when we say a story, say what's the Nigerian story? The best person to tell your story is yourself. And at the back of my minds, we want to tell a good story. We want to present a good foot forward. But the thing about branding, so in the past, we've had phrases, phrases like, it says Nigeria, good people, great nation, and something like that. The fact is that, yes, you're trying to occupy a mindset in somebody, where you talk about, want the person to have a good notion, about your country. But if the product is inherently bad, there's a limit to what kind of branding you would put behind it. You can put all kinds of branding behind it, but people say, this product is trash. So essentially, there is a role, there's a responsibility to tweak the product so that when you tell your story and say we are good people, we are great, we are intelligent, people will say, yes, that is our Nigerian story. There's hope. We have to tell the story ourselves.
Great stuff, great stuff. So I would want to take it a bit further, and I'll start with you again, Louis. In rewriting this Nigerian story and we telling the story ourselves, how do you think the corporate bodies or this corporate sector, what role do they play in rewriting the story, in telling the story of the future Nigeria?
Okay, so the way I see it, the corporate sector has an important role to play. So if you look at the number of people, so we say we have a large population of young people. So what that essentially means is that we are giving birth happily. But I must say this, since I'm also a health professional, that it means that there's also a problem in terms of we are not taking care of old people. So, but when you have a large population of young people, a lot of them are working. And I dare say that the corporate sector actually employs a lot of people, a considerable number of people. Now, what that means is that in as much as, you know, when you look at an organizational culture, in as much as it is related to the values of the society, the corporate culture, the organizational culture also has a lot of role to play in terms of building people, you know, and helping them to have the right kind of values, which they should manifest in the society. So if you take the average corporate organization, so you have it's not uncommon, you know, to have them have values. You know, so they can talk about values like we have a value of integrity. So that means that for anybody who's working in this organization, we are working in a certain way. So we teach you, you know, we coach you, you know, to lead with integrity, you know, things like that. But I dare say that it goes beyond the plaques, you know, that we put on the walls. So if I am saying, you know, for example, that in our organization we value integrity, there are also people who are the custodians, you know, of those values. And these are the managers. These are the people. So the people themselves are the custodians, you know, of those values. So the value system that is put by the corporate organizations is important, and it's going to help a lot in changing the narrative, but there's also a major role that the people have to play.
Thank you very much. Ndidi, you want to say something to that?
Well, I mean, I think Louis has hit it spot on. Organizations will need to be more mindful that, I mean, we talk about corporate social responsibility, and we don't focus on the fact that in building our people, we're building citizens for the country. We're building ambassadors both for the organization and for the nation. So I think that's what Louis is talking about. When a strong value system is reinforced in the culture of an organization, it goes beyond that organization. You have built a citizen for the nation. That citizen, and a lot of people in the middle class don't realize the kind of influence that they have. Most people have a driver, you have a nanny, you have a cook, you have a small community around you that you're also carrying that conversation on with. You're having those conversations with. So you're transforming even the lower stratas of society, and that starts with the organization first. On the organization, the professional himself or herself must realize that, you know, in this job, my role is beyond I'm making profit, I'm hitting my target. I am building people, and I'm building citizens for Nigeria. So beyond the professional talk, we also need to start to have the political talk. Not wait for the politicians to give them 5,000 naira when it's time to vote. Because every time they have a need, they don't look for that politician, they look for you. So you need to start to have those conversations with the cleaners in your office, the housekeeper at home, the driver who takes your children to school. You have a huge community around you. So Louis is spot on.
Thank you very much. Sheun, do you have anything to contribute to that?
Thank you, Genga. And just to add to what Didi and Louis has said, I definitely believe that the corporate sector has a great role to play in writing the story of Nigeria. But first of all, we need to acknowledge the fact that the corporate sector is made up of individuals, the working professionals, you and I, who are the true change agents. They are the true ambassadors that will actually change the Nigerian story. And I think there are two critical things that actually stops us from, you know, trying to do this. And for me, first of all, will be around the mindset of the average Nigerian, which is one of the things that Louis had mentioned. And then the second one is a level of trust in the society. So if you look at the mindset of the average Nigerian or the working professional, what they typically think is always about themselves. Like, why do I have to do this? What is in it for me? But in writing the story of Nigeria, we have to think long-term. We have to think about the future gains. We have to think about the future reward. Because it's about us building legacy for tomorrow, not about today. So we as corporate professionals need to ensure that we project Nigeria in the right way, but sometimes also, even when we want to do that, our belief systems, our mindsets, our education also hinders us. I'll give an example of the educational system today, which is very critical to the corporate sector in reshaping the future of Nigeria. The educational system today is built to actually make you accept things. It's built to make you fit in, not to challenge, not to question things. So, for example, I look at when we were back there in the university, for us to pass our exams, what we have to basically do is to just read and then go to the exam or cram and download. We don't question what our lecturer teaches us. We just drop it and then we get good grades. But now, this same behavior, we've taken it into the corporate world, where we are not challenging things anymore in the corporate world. We just want to conform. This is where the corporate sector comes in. We need to create that structure, that processes that allows individuals, working professionals, to challenge things, to think outside the box and explore new ways of doing things. And in doing that, we'll be transforming the mindset of the working professionals, and ultimately, we will be shaping the future of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sean, I would come to you with this question now. Earlier, Louis mentioned the fact that the corporate sector is employing a lot of individuals from the society and from the communities. And if you observe, in recent time, we are having more millennials join the workforce. How do you think these millennials should start seeing their job and their role? And what role does the corporate sector, the employers of this labor, what role do they play in helping these millennials shape the story of the future Nigeria?
Okay, thank you. I think I'm also one of the millennials you're referring to. Thank you. So, millennials, to a large extent, are at the early stage of their career. So that means that whatever they learn now will shape and affect how they behave 10 to 15 years' time. So this means that the corporate sector has a role to play now to mentor those people, to build them, and to instill in them the right leadership skills. Because when we talk about the future of Nigeria, these are actually the future of Nigeria that we're talking about. But today, a lot of millennials have been labeled, there's a lot of stereotypes about millennials, that they are not hardworking, or maybe they are lazy, they have their own way of doing things and all that. But we need to, first of all, also acknowledge and understand the millennials. It's very critical. These guys were born into the technology age. They are used to things being instant. So they don't understand delayed gratification, which is actually required in life, right? So what the corporate sector needs to do is to provide systems and structures that actually allows them to understand what all this is all about. But in the process of doing that, we need to also reward them. Because a lot of companies in Nigeria today, it takes about 10 to 15 years for you to become a manager. If you tell that to a millennial, they don't understand that. In the next 5 years, I want to be a manager, I want to be the boss. But there has to be processes in place for you to go through that. And as they go through those processes, we need to reward them. We need to look for a way to stretch them, to give them more responsibilities. I think overall, what the corporate sector needs to do for millennials is to look for a way to channel their energy. Because they are restless, but they are extremely creative. And that is the creativity that we need in the corporate sector to actually shape the narrative of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Louis, what's your take on that? How should the corporate sector help the millennials in driving this new Nigeria story?
Okay, so what I think is that for the corporate sector, when I listen to the law community, when they talked, they talked about, somebody was talking about regulation, for example, talking about regulatory law and things that they need to put in place. Now, for even also for the corporate sector and where we do business, there's a place, that regulation, there's a place for regulation, where you have proper regulations in place. Now, the essence of regulations is to ensure that business is carried out at a certain level and at a certain standard. So when you have that going on, you can actually have your organization, building millennials, so you're talking about, what you've deposited. So, building millennials to contribute, at a certain level. So if that is in place, that's the kind of result, that you are going to get. Then I think that organizations also need to, so organizations need to recognize, the kind of people that they have. So when you have millennials working with you, I think that you should look at how you can use people, to potentially, because for a lot of organizations that want to grow, you are thinking about doing things differently. What can we do differently, that can add value to people that people are going to pay for. And I think that a lot of millennials actually have very, very great ideas that can potentially transform that organization if you keep an open mind. So I think that with this in place, the sky's the limit for most organizations that have millennials, working for them.
Thank you very much. Ndidi, I'll come to you now. With the increase of globalization and with more and more organizations, both multinationals and non-multinationals, having to interact with these global brands and foreign brands, how do you think both employees and the corporate sector, or the employers, can take advantage of this globalization in rewriting the narrative of the Nigerian story? Probably if these foreign brands or global brands had a negative story before now, how can we start using or leveraging this relationship with these foreign brands now to rewrite the story?
I mean, it's back to doing things right. The truth is that when the average foreigner meets a Nigerian, the expectation is very low. There is a reputation out there that we cannot deny. But I think that in itself is an opportunity. Yes, you would need to struggle or push harder than everybody else. But I always think that when you're coming from a really low estate and you make it to a level that people don't expect, maybe in the values that you show, in the quality of your work output, the surprise element is a real high. So I think that opportunity we need to start to milk in ensuring that as corporate organizations, we put our best people out there. It's not just best in terms of quality of work delivery, because what we are contending with is actually values. That's where people have a problem with us. I think the world knows that we are talented, but they don't know that they can trust us. Okay? So we want to project the right people, we want to prepare the right people, and we want to put them out there, knowing that they will pleasantly surprise. And that surprise element will result in some type of hesitation initially. But when there is consistency in what we have been able to deliver, it will just break open the gates. And we've opened doors for more Nigerians. But if you listen to what I've told you, everything starts from the foundation again. What is the work culture in that organization? What are the values in that organization? Are those values reinforced by the behavior of the top management staff? Or is that just brand speak? Is it real life events that people live in those organizations? So we must go back to the foundation again in these organizations and be present enough to realize that we're not just discussing profitability here. We're discussing changing the story of Nigeria, changing the future of Nigeria, transforming the lives of a lot of young people. So the weight of that responsibility is a lot, and we truly need to wake up to it.
Thank you very much. Shehu, I would come to you with the same question.
Thank you. So there's this famous quote from one of the American speakers that says that things are the way they are because of the way we are. And I like to say Nigeria is the way it is because of the way Nigerians are. First of all, entrepreneurs and individuals need to understand that we are all ambassadors of this great nation. Whether we like it or not, the fact that you carry a Nigerian passport or you are a Nigerian, you're an ambassador. So it's very important that the way we project this nation, in the way we deal with foreign colleagues, foreign business partners, or foreign clients, is actually projecting the right narrative that we want to tell about Nigeria. So I'll give some examples. Sometimes Nigerians, we go late to meetings, and then it's being said that, oh, the Nigerians are always coming late for meetings. You know, that particular action of yours is now being used to label and stereotype every other Nigerian. Sometimes, you make commitments that you're going to get something done in 3 days, but the truth is that that thing would not be done in the next 8 days or 2 weeks. But because, you want to win the clients, you say, don't worry, I'm going to get it done. And then you don't get it done. And the next thing is Nigerians do not keep to their words. There's even another example of, for those of us that work in multinationals, sometimes your phone is ringing and it's at the highest level, and you're disturbing everybody in the office. And you pick up your phone and you're on the phone and you're making a lot of noise, and they're like, oh, the Nigerians are very lousy. So every action you portray as an individual actually labels the country. And this is not about the government. The truth is that a lot of all these foreign nationals, they don't deal with the government. They deal with you and I, the corporate citizens. They spend more time with us. So we are actually the ones painting the narrative of Nigeria. So we need to start changing things. Because you know what happens? When you start doing things right, even though they know that they've heard those stories that Nigeria is corrupt and all that, but they will say, you know what, yes, Nigeria can be corrupt and it can be this and that, but I know some Nigerians that are very diligent. I know some Nigerians that are very hardworking, who are committed. So that way, you're playing your own role in shaping the story of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our time is fast spent, so we'll try to wrap this up quickly. Mr. Louis, in less than a minute or in a minute, these foreign brands or foreigners or global brands, they have mixed reactions about the Nigerian story or the average Nigerian. It's one of the Nigerian is smart, he's talented, he has long suffering, he's very patient and all that. But at the same time, that same story is mixed with stealing and corruption. In your experience, what has it been like?
So I think the first thing I will say is that for that perspective to change, a lot will depend on you, first of all, because you are the one that the person has that contact with. So you can have any thought, any perception at the back of your mind. But in your interaction with me, for example, I have the opportunity to change the perception, that you have. But what I can say is that for lots of organizations, I mean, if I say Nigeria, say one thing that is synonymous with Nigeria. So, I mean, corruption would be one of the things that maybe would go through your mind. But it's actually a global problem. So if you take the European multinationals, for example, by the time you are being trained, maybe in those European multinationals, because they want you to work in a certain way. So, for example, you will learn, the European anti-bribery laws. And interestingly, you also learn about the US, because these are what's the right word now? They have stringent regulatory systems and they take it very, very serious. So, I mean, nobody will talk about the Nigerian anti-bribery. It's not going to be such a major deal because they don't think that we prioritize that. So the same thing, if you do that if you work also for an American firm, they'll tell you about the anti-bribery law for the US, and then they would also train you also on the European law. So corruption is a big issue. But we have, so in as much, the narrative is there, but we have, the responsibility is ours, to change that narrative. So in all our dealings with people, in all our dealings, how we deal with these people, these are the things that we need to do. So we must uphold our tasks. We must carry out our tasks, with the utmost integrity. Because if people want to say Nigerians are honest, or Nigerians are dishonest, it is based on what they have seen Nigerians do. I mean, it's not only Nigeria, so I can talk about maybe some other tribes. And when you call them, people say, no, I don't want to do business with those kind of people but we have the responsibility to change that narrative. And really, I want us to take it up as a challenge. It's a challenge to us to change that narrative from our own side.
All right, thank you very much. We're almost out of time, so all three, let me start with Shane. What's that one value the Nigerian corporate professional needs to have as we rewrite the Nigerian story? One word, one value.
I would say excellence.
Excellence, fantastic. Louis.
She took it from my mouth. Excellence. Excellence.
All right, Ndidi.
I'll stay with integrity.
Integrity, fantastic stuff. Thank you very much. Thank you to the panel. And for me, my major takeout from the discussion is the fact that as Nigerians, we are the ones who need to rewrite or tell our story as we try to rewrite this story, as we try to change the narrative from what it is that people see presently. We are the ones who can tell the story and tell it the way it is. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your time, and have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.
Sales and marketing professionals panel. It was such an interesting session. Thank you to each and every one of you for your time. And we'll start with our last panel now, our banking and finance professionals panel. I'll introduce the moderator, Dr. Flo. Could you please come to the stage? And then you'll also introduce the members of your panel. This will be our final panel. After this, we'll take closing remarks from our leader, the senior pastor of Covenant Christian Center, the Covenant Nation, Pastor Kojo Yemade, and then we'll close out the event. Thank you, Flo. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your patience and waiting this far. The role of trust in any financial institution cannot be overemphasized, and ethics is a core of any financial profession. That is why the Finance and Banking Professionals Group have come up with the topic, Business Ethics and Running a Corruption-Free Enterprise. To do justice to this topic, we have seasoned professionals and business executives in various industries, and I'll be calling them on to join me in no particular order. Our first speaker is Mr. Eric Fajemison. Mr. Eric Fajemison is a non-executive director of Stanbic IBTC Insurance Brokers. He was appointed Chief Executive of Stanbic IBTC Pension Managers Limited on the 22nd of December 2015. And has played a pivotal role in the development and implementation of various business strategies, which help transform and sustain the company as the largest pension fund administration company in Nigeria. Mr. Fajemison has extensive experience in banking and financial services spanning over 25 years, during which he acquired practical and in-depth knowledge in investment banking, multilateral sector financing, debt syndication, equity placement, financial advisory, pension fund portfolio management. He holds a bachelor's degree in politics philosophy economics from the University of Ife and an MBA from the University of Lagos. He is a fellow of both the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Martins Arogi. Mr. Martins Arogi is a partner focused on the power sector and the tax, regulatory, and people services division of KPMG. With over 12 years' experience working in KPMG, he is an associate of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. Mr. Martins has varied experience advising multinational and national clients on tax structuring, tax risk management, corporate tax planning, regulatory advisory and compliance projects. He provides practical advice to clients on how to proactively manage any potential impact on their Nigerian operations. He has obtained relevant experience in other jurisdictions through a secondment to the UK practice, where he worked on several engagements involving clients in both the energy and natural resources sectors and consumer markets. Mr. Martins has authored several articles in both international and national journals on the power sector, among several other topics of interest to investors in the country. He enjoys reading and writing, and in his spare time is also an ardent sports enthusiast. Welcome, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. David Butler. Mr. David Butler has garnered over 19 years' experience in the QSR industry in over 5 countries. He started his career in Pick and Pay hypermarkets and has since held various managerial positions in Nando's restaurants, Yum Brands International, and KFC. In 2014, he became the managing director of the company and has led the company to its current position. That is, one of the top 5 QSRs in Nigeria and one of the most respected and upmarket brands in the industry. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much, audience. Thank you for welcoming our panelists. I'm so excited and privileged to be here. I will just jump right into it and start answering the questions. The first question that I would like to ask, and please, this is directed to Mr. Martins Aruge. What is business ethics?
Thank you very much. Now, ethics basically is a concept of right and wrong. Basically, it's not a set of rules. It's not something that is typically driven by law. It's more around you and what you know and believe to be right or wrong. So in every situation, the layman's word will say your conscience. What appeals to your conscience in every situation? How do you perceive that situation? What is right and what is wrong? And how do you apply yourself in situational concepts to that ideal or that idea of right and wrong? So that's what ethics is all about. Just basically saying, how do we determine what is right and what is wrong in every particular situation we find ourselves, and how do we then subsequently apply ourselves to that idea?
Okay, thank you very much. So ethics is basically what is right and what is wrong, and how we can apply ourselves in different scenarios. I don't know if anyone else has something to chip in concerning the question, what is business ethics? Okay, they all agree with him. I want to ask, based on this definition, is it possible to run an ethical business? Mr. David Butler, would you like to answer that question, please?
Is it possible to run an ethical business? What a question. I think the answer is, of course it is. Businesses are run by people, and being ethical and being honest is a decision and a choice. I think in order to make the right decisions and the right choices, you have to believe in doing what's right. And doing what right is sometimes the hardest thing to do. Many times you sit there and you say, this is the easy way out of this situation. Or this is the way that we are choosing to go because we're under time constraint. Or this is the way we're doing it because we need to make sure that this person doesn't get in our way, or I have my appraisal coming up, or I have an objective to achieve. But those are easy things to say. There's always an excuse for doing things the wrong way. You set a procedure, you set a standard, you set an expectation, And you need to do the right things because these are the things that you believe in, not because you're being told that there's a watchdog keeping an eye on you. If you believe in women empowerment, you need to believe it and then act upon it. If you believe in doing ethically correct business, you need to believe in it and do it and show what you have done. I think large portions of the problem of saying, no one's born inherently unethical. You're born neutral. You learn to be unethical. In other words, to learn, somebody has to teach you. So that's the scary piece for me, that you learn it, and in order to learn, someone has to teach. And if someone's teaching you, they're teaching you either because of need, or they're teaching you because they have to get something done that you've told them to do. And I think, the question, as I said, is a broad one, and you can keep talking about this all day, and many people have opinions on it. But the reality is that if you don't believe in the right things, you will easily be distracted to do the wrong things. And the cost of doing the wrong things on the business long term are exponential.
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. There's some things that I've just noted here. You talked about believing and acting upon it. So that means that if you believe something and you're acting contrary to what your beliefs are, then you're not actually working even according to your own personal ethics. And then there's an interesting thing that you talked about also mentioning that ethics has to be learned, because we take it for granted that, people are just supposed to go, I'm a Christian, so I'm ethical by reason, you made us to see that ethics is not, it doesn't come naturally, we have to learn it. So thank you very much. I would also want, Mr. Eric, would you like to pitch in on the question, is it possible to run an ethical business?
Thank you, Doc. I'll say a very strong yes, and I would also, just to bring it home, say that it's almost impossible to be unethical and be in business over the long time. I think what happens is, or what we are used to is to see people trying to do both, mixing it. But over the long time, if you go back and check corporate histories and stuff like that, the companies that are around today and will be around tomorrow are companies that do things ethically. As David has said, there will be a mix, and over time, you will expect that the corporates would take on a different look and move towards the right direction. But sustainability and long-term existence of any business idea, whatever level, it has to be on an ethical basis, in my own opinion.
Thank you very much. I actually have a follow-up question to Mr. David. You talked about doing the right thing. So is it possible to actually be ethical in business and be profitable?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the two go hand in hand. I think if you're talking short-term profitability or you're talking long-term profitability and sustainability, as the gentleman so rightly said, it's easy to make a profit 1 year. It's not easy to produce continual profit growth and to build brands. I think when you talk about building a profitable business, you're building a profitable business for everyone. For the customer, for the shareholder, and for the employee. The employee wants to know that tomorrow and next year my job is guaranteed, and there'll be a salary, and there'll be a 13th check, and there'll be a bonus, and there'll be a career opportunity. The shareholder wants to see sustainable growth. He doesn't want to see a blip 1 year, a loss the next year, a blip the next year. If he would be more happy with 5-10% consistent growth because he can see that the business is going in the right direction. So it's about making sure that you're looking after all those three elements. And yes, you can run profitable businesses. Profitable businesses turn, and profitable business will go through cycles like anything else in the marketplace. But I think if you have the fundamentals right, like the other gentleman has spoken about, the fundamentals have to be there. And if you as the leader of that organization or the leadership don't practice what you preach, it will never stick.
Thank you very much. That's very, very inspiring. I would like to just quickly move to the next question. And this question is directed to Mr. Martin Sarugi. Can you please share with us a practical experience you have had managing ethical situations during the course of doing business or during the course of your career?
First of all, when you do business, when David spoke, he talked about learning values, about people not being born with it. And that's also a function of your environment. Because what you would find out is that if you, the concept of what is right or wrong is also a function of the environment where you live in. Now, people, if you grew up in a place where people necessarily believe that this is right and this is wrong, it's very likely that you would begin to see things, even though they are not necessarily right, in that same context. And why do I first say that? I say that because we operate in an environment where many people have tried to blur the lines between what is right and what is wrong. And so if you want to do business in Nigeria, you would always be faced with that ethical challenge of necessarily needing to say to yourself, these are the values that I would abide by, and this is the way I would do business. So I don't think that there is anybody in Nigeria who has done business in Nigeria that hasn't faced an ethical challenge at one point or the other. But like everyone has said here today, if you want to build a sustainable business over the long term, then you would need to stick to the values and also say to yourself, I will do things ethically. So I would not want to talk about specific examples, probably because I also don't want to have people trying to second guess who exactly is he talking about and what scenarios is he actually talking about. But what I can say is that from my experience, I've had these instances where we've gone to make a pitch to a particular group, and we've said to them, we can do this for you. We can do this for you. And it was clear that if you wanted to achieve your purpose, this was the best set of people you should go with. But if you wanted to achieve your purpose and some, without necessarily saying what that and some is, you may not be better off going with these people. You may want to go with somebody else. And what I can say is so they made that choice. And a few years down the line, they were back to us. And the reason wasn't very far-fetched. Because at the end of the day, one of the most unethical professions you would ever see is stealing. But there is a saying about about honor amongst thieves, that you cannot even be a successful thief if you are not honorable. Even amongst your fellow thieves, if you are not someone they can rely on, if you are not someone they can take your word for. So you're all stealing, you're all involved in something unethical. But even amongst themselves, they are saying, I need to do this unethical practice with someone I can trust. So you can imagine if you are in a business that is supposedly focused on law and regulation, how much more is it important for the people you are going to be working with to be able to say, I can trust you, and I believe that if I work with you, I can take your word for it because you will do the right things at every point in time. So that for me underscores the importance of ethics in business.
Thank you very much. Mr. Eric, would you like to please pitch in into that? Yes, we would like a practical because we want to bring it home.
Okay. Like Matthew mentioned, I think you'll be able to give exact fine details. But I think like most Nigerians, anyone with a commercial or economic activity, you probably face these situations almost on a daily basis, depending on where you operate. And I dare say, even if in church, if you get late to some churches at the gates, they might offer you some parking assistance. So it's everywhere in the world. Now, what I know for a fact, and for the institutions that I've worked with, is which I've worked all my life, almost 30-something years now, is there are no two answers to the question. So I get my colleagues tell me that, they recall 15 years ago there was some conversation. I don't even recall what it was, but somebody told me about 2 weeks ago and said that's how she was in one meeting, and she called me or sent me an SMS that they are asking for this type of understanding or whatever it is. And my response was, are you on the, when are you back in Lagos? This was outside Lagos. I have no recollection of it, but what I'm simply saying is that it has to be something that it is almost in your DNA. They are not, we don't have a conversation. So it's something that percolates the organization. People would, you should expect it anyway. We are all Nigerians, and it's a bit rampant in certain areas, but it's how you deal with it. I think for some institutions where some are better protected, that you do not have the conversation. Personally, it happens that you find out that you have your employees, your staff get involved in certain things that are in the gray areas you get. So for me, I think that's where it's really, it's the humanity of it. That's where it hits us, and that's where we feel a lot of pain. But I can't tell you that this is one example of what has happened in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's move on to tax now. Tax is an issue that every business has to pay taxes, and there's been a lot of conversations about increasing the domestic tax. They recently increased the VAT from 5% to 7.5%, and there's still more talks about it. So this kind of development would most likely lead to some businesses engaging in, blurring the lines between tax evasion and tax avoidance. So please, Mr. Martins, how would you like to square this difference? How would you like to create a balance between what is tax evasion and what is tax? Because this is one of the major things that every business has to pay and every business has to deal with.
When I hear people talk about bloodlines between evasion and avoidance, I typically laugh because there is nothing like bloodlines. When you set out, and if I borrow from David, everything you do, you make a choice. And when you decide to go against, or you decide to evade tax, you are always conscious of the fact that this thing I am doing isn't the right thing. It's a choice that you've made. Now, when we talk about the concept of avoidance and evasion, tax is a function of law. And anything that's a function of law is always subject to interpretation. Otherwise, there will be no work for lawyers. If law was something that was plain and in black and white, where everybody could read and understand, like ABC, and we would all have the same understanding, then there will be no need for lawyers and there will be no need for judges. So once anything is a function of law, then it would always be subject to interpretation, diverse interpretation. And then when you have something that is subject to diverse interpretation, people can, as much as possible, try and extend the scope of that interpretation and see what value or benefits they can derive. And there is no such thing as a perfect law. There is no such thing as a perfect law. Every law has ways it can be improved upon. And that's why if you go to developed countries, and that's something we used to have in Nigeria, and something we're bringing back recently, you would find that every year there is a finance bill or finance act that typically accompanies the budget. And what's that supposed to do? Government is constantly looking at the laws and saying, what we said this law was supposed to achieve, what are the loopholes in it, and how do we address that? And so that's where the concept of tax avoidance typically comes from, and say, we are within the law, but we are taking advantage of a certain loophole within the law to try and maximize our tax benefits, which is very different from tax evasion, where you are basically saying, I am totally going against the law. So I am not doing, I know that this is against the law. There is no shadow of turning, and I have done something that is against the law. And I know that. I know that for certain. So that's the primary difference. And like I said, people typically know when they are stretching and when they are breaking the law. And it's a conscious choice. But even beyond the concept of evasion and avoidance, there's also the concept of responsible tax, where people who make more have an obligation to contribute to the society from where they make that money. So, and I think that's more important than the concept of avoidance or evasion. Responsible tax. So can I, within the law, avoid this particular tax obligation? Maybe I can, but would it be responsible for me to also avoid it? Do I have an obligation to, as much as possible, contribute to the society from where I make this money? Because again, when I worked in, the speaker was talking about corporate social responsibility and personal social responsibility. I think those are concepts that we as individuals and as companies need to begin to take more seriously. Sustainability, because if we don't contribute our quota to the society that we live in, then at some point that society will no longer exist. And without people and without society, then we can no longer make profits. So I think we need to be able to balance that concept between avoidance, evasion, and tax responsibility also.
Thank you very much, sir. And I like your concluding part of your statement, because a lot of people, the reasons why they avoid or evade tax is because in Nigeria they say because they don't see it's been, they don't see the benefits of paying the tax. But really, it's about responsibility, and everybody has to play the role. You don't have to wait for the next person to actually, or the government, or whoever this government is, to do their role. We can actually be responsible and pay the tax. Thank you so much. I'll just move on to the business operations, because we're here talking about business. Does business really have any impact on the society? And I'm directing this question to Mr. David Butler. Does business really have any impact on the society? And what is the effect of business operations in the society, so that people can even understand why we're having this conversation talking about business ethics in the first place? What is the effect of business operations in the society?
Look, I think if I understand the question correctly, it's about what impact does business have on society.
Exactly.
And it's evident if you're employing people, and those people that you're employing have families, and those families have spouses and siblings, and this is how obvious how your business impacts the society around you. So I think when people talk about social responsibility and corporate social responsibility, I think all of those things are your end objective, is to make sure that you're looking after the society around you. And to the same point, I think if you're not running an ethical business, you're not going to be sustainable, and therefore you're going to be doing things that may be short-term, that are not going to be long-term, and the people around you in your social environment need those interactions to be long-term in order to give them peace of mind. When everything that you do in business is about people. In our business right now, we employ over 3,000 people. That's 3,000 people probably looking after 6 people per household. So you've now all of a sudden multiplied that responsibility out into something that makes you stay awake at night. Because if I do something wrong and I impact not just the 3,000 people that work for me today, but probably impact the 5,000 additional people that I'm going to employ over the next 5 years, and then I multiply that out again by 6, you start to realize the effects of the decisions on the pyramid scale that you start to impact as a leader. So I think it is about doing the right thing, and it is about making sure that you're ethically correct. And I think ethically correct, as so these two gentlemen have directly stated, there's a conscious decision to do the right thing, and to understand that everything that you do in business has a consequence, a good one or a bad one. Sometimes the bad decision, probably could be the right decision, but it's a bad decision for the business, and it has a P&L impact. Sometimes you're going to go the other way around, and you're going to make a good decision, and it just so happens that COVID or SARS or something comes along and makes that good decision become a bad decision. But that's business. That's why you play every day, and that's why you're in a leadership role, is to take it on the nose and say, I did wrong. I didn't do illegal. I did wrong. I made a wrong business decision. And in our organization, we try to just do that separation about, you can make a mistake. You're human. But if you're going to make the same mistake 2 or 3 times, it's now habitual. And therein is when the problem starts to materialize. So can business impact social life? Absolutely. Do we impact multiple people, both in terms of the customers that we feed? If you're feeding 50,000 customers a day, and those people are going, to work and looking after their families, you're contributing to society as a whole. Thank you.
I can imagine that running business will be a lot of pressure if you're thinking about things from that side. But then, like you rightly put, we are humans and we can make mistakes, but we just have to learn from our mistakes. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that comment. But I was wondering if you could shed more light and let us know if there are policies that can be put in place to ensure that the business remains ethical. Because, are there some tips or some policies that any business can put in place to ensure that they have the right principles, and then also that the principles of the management actually transcends down to the staff, because if you're going to be able to have that multiplier effect on the society?
Yeah, look, I think obviously, when you're setting out your own structures internally, you have your processes, you have your controls, you have your codes of conduct. I think if you have a process and a control or a policy comes into place that isn't for the betterment of somebody or for the betterment of the business, then you need to question why that process is there in the first place. Because the process is there to make either people be safe in terms of, are they protecting their jobs, or are you doing this because you want to set a guideline that people are treated fairly? Because if a policy is designed to allow you to treat people unfairly, then by default, you've started off by doing the wrong thing. So I think, policies and procedures should be people enablers or business enablers or local community enablers, but they definitely can't be there to negatively affect anybody. And I think that, to that point, we've done a lot of work in our business. We're nowhere near perfect, not by a long chalk. But I think unless you make a conscious decision to pull up a handbrake and say the car's got to stop, okay? Now I can release the handbrake and I can go into first gear. And once you hit first gear, the conscious decision to move to second gear and to third gear becomes far more natural. But I think unless businesses take the right approach to putting those hard calls in place, and they're hard calls because they affect people's lives and they affect challenging people's ethics, until you do that, you're just going uphill and you don't have a clutch. So it's a tough place to be until you stop doing what's wrong, until you can start doing what's right.
Thank you so much. Mr. Eric, please, do you have anything to pitch in on what he had just said?
Okay. I think the slant I'll put to it is, yes, I believe you must have these things documented to the best of what you can conceive. And the reason being, I think we've heard it here in church say that you can't scale ambiguity. So if it's not clear, it's not understood, it's going to be difficult to be implemented. And what do I mean? There are certain things you would expect from your staff, from your vendors, and from stuff like that. So like David mentioned, you need to have a code of conduct. You need to have, there are so many things in my own organization that we do have, up to the extent that if you have other businesses, you have to disclose, because we do not want to be competing with our staff. The battle is out there, so it's important to disclose. You have even policies to help people, because people get into situations that we cannot predefine. So in my organization, we have what we call MUD, M-U-D. It's called material, unusual, and difficult situations. You escalate. So it's just to give people room to do the right thing, such that if you get into this thing, bottom line is to put as much as these things in a codified form. You kind of explain to people, you teach about it, you speak about it in meetings. In my organization, in every meeting, we start with a 3-minute conversation on one of the company's values. It's over time, because once you begin to talk about it, then people begin to imbibe those things. Like you mentioned, we're not naturally like that. We have to be taught. So that's part of the hand-holding process. So it's important to put as much as you can and share with your companies, employees, with your vendors, and everyone that has a deal with you. It's as you need to do that, I think.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I'll just quickly move to the issue of regulation and the role that regulation plays in running a business. The government recently has been rolling out a lot of regulations, specifically in the banking sector and the financial sector. Can you please talk to us about how, now some of these regulations may seem difficult at first because it's a change and we all know how we react to change. So can you please talk to us on how businesses can overcome the challenges that some of these regulations may bring?
I think as a business, one of the most important things to do is to understand why you exist. And a regulation may impact you positively or negatively, as you have rightly mentioned. Most of the regulations that we've seen, we only see or hear them when they quote unquote impact the businesses negatively. There are quite a lot of regulations that impact positively. We should also bear that in mind and cut the government some slack. If the government, look, my own organization will not exist today if the government didn't pass the Pension Reform Act. So that's a positive regulation.
It's true.
National health insurance is a positive regulation affecting employees. Now, back to your question is that government does something and it impacts maybe an organization and they have to kind of downsize or whatever they need to do. The first speaker today, I heard part of his conversation where he said that it's a pain that you have to bear. It's a growing up process. So if you are in the business of importing fish and you are doing so well, and you had customers, the government bans the importation of fish, you probably are not in the business of importing fish, but you are in the business of perhaps feeding or perhaps giving people food or something like that. If you redefined it enables you to think a bit broader about your purpose. It enables you to think a bit broader about how you address challenges. Changing regulations is a fact of life. When a lot of us started businesses and started work, the way the things were, we can't wish it was that way. It was the changes that brought us to where we are. So I think that we just have to position our businesses in a way that they are very nimble. We're not reactive. If you are reactive, then obviously you might go with the wind, as they say. But if your business processes and practices and your reason for existing is really well defined, then you should be able to cope. There might be a painful period where you're trying to adjust and get used to the regulations. But I mean, banking you mentioned, we've seen quite a lot. I think the regulatory environment in banks it's pretty tough. You get about a regulation maybe once every 2 days. But we see these banks are still, alive, and they're still doing very well. So it's about being nimble. It's about, don't stop being reactive and start to kind of predict the future. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Please, do you have anything to pitch in on what he said?
Yeah, I think the way I would look at that question is the absence or presence of regulation is not a basis to cut corners. Because what you would typically find, people would say there are no clear rules around this thing. And so where there are no rules, there can be any sin. That's not correct. And then you would also find people say, we were doing it the right way until they changed regulations. And it became almost impossible to continue to do it that way. That's why we began to cut corners. That's also totally incorrect. You are either dedicated to doing things the right way, or you are not. And regulation or its absence thereof should not be an excuse for cutting corners. And it also takes me back to the question before now about codifying principles and all of that for employees. Because at the end of the day, I saw a movie a few years ago, many years ago, where someone said, "Did you eat 3 times a day?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "Show me which law says you ought to eat 3 times a day." And the person couldn't find the law. But you know that you need to eat 3 times a day. I am strongly in support of putting all of these things in writing, but not everything will be in writing. And that's why you need to still, at the end of the day, appeal to your inner consciousness of what is right and what is wrong. And also, for organizations, it is always important that we set the tone at the top. So if we codify everything we want to codify, issue as many regulations as we want, if the tone at the top is that all that is important is that we achieve results irrespective of the how, then they will be almost impossible to have employees who will do otherwise. So it's always very, very important that we go beyond what we just write and we act it from the most senior person in any organization. And then you would see that they would flow from there going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You actually spoke to the follow-up question that I had for Mr. David in terms of like the situations where there are no regulations or no clear-cut regulations. And thank you for doing justice to that, except if you have anything like, anything to add to what he said. Okay, thank you. So our time is, we're about rounding up now. I just want to ask everyone on the panel, please, if you can share with us one of the toughest decisions you've ever made in your career or business. It should just help the viewers, anybody, that would just like to know the toughest decisions. It can serve as an encouragement to people running business or people in their careers right now. Starting from you, Mr. Butler, please.
Yeah, no, you make lots of tough decisions in life, yeah? I think if I talk about my business tough decisions, I think I'm not going to mention specific instances, but I can definitely think back to a certain time in my career in Nigeria where a decision had to be made internally within myself to enable me to decide as to whether or not I was going to allow something to be this way or if I wanted to change it to another way. And I remember very clearly that might sound like an easy decision to make, but then you start thinking about the ramifications of your decision. You start thinking about how it's going to impact families and people and fellow colleagues, and you start to say to yourself, is that worth it? And I think, when that deciding moment sort of hits you, it does hit you, and it hits you hard. And then you decide, yes, I'm going to do this. And that's why I refer to this handbrake quite often. That decision for me was when to pull up a handbrake, okay, when to take the handbrake off, okay, and when to put the car in gear. So there are very specific things in my career where, I've asked myself the question, am I the right person for this job? Do I need to be in this seat? If I don't have the answer, should I move on? And I think that those are the difficult decisions most difficult things is asking and questioning yourself, as opposed to asking and questioning the organization, saying, can I add value? Do I add value? Will I continue to add value? And at which stage will I stop adding value and vacate my seat?
Thank you so much. Please, you can go ahead.
It's a difficult question in terms of the most challenging decision, because, and if I situate it in the context of ethics, it's not, I won't say I've had a challenging decision, because I've had disappointments. I've had instances where we've invested significant amount of time and resources trying to make something work, and you've spent probably the best part of 3 to 6 months working on a project or working on the concept of a project, and just as you expect to get the go-ahead and someone to sign an engagement letter, and then somebody begins to act funny. And then you realize if this is going to go ahead, you need to compromise your values. And again, that's not a difficult decision, but it leaves you with a tinge of disappointment, because you just realize, is this really worth it? Is this, when I mean walking away isn't yeah, it's clear we're going to walk away. There is no doubt whatsoever in my mind in that situation. And it's not, and I don't walk away feeling disappointed that I'm walking away. But you feel disappointed that you were even in that position in the first place, that you need to get to that kind of position in the first place. So yeah, that's the kind of situation. But again, like I said, the disappointment is more in the people you are having to deal with and in the environment in which you are having to operate. Because ordinarily, you would think that people would focus more on value and what benefits the most rather than what benefits them and them alone. But we live in a society where that is not always the case. And when you encounter those situations, it always leaves you with a tinge of disappointment because you want better for everyone.
Okay, thank you. For Mr. Eric, I want to tweak the question to what is, because in context of what he has just said, how do you cope with that kind of situation when you're faced with that kind of tough situation? How do you move on from that? Maybe you could just add that to your concluding statement.
So let me just clarify. What I understood from him is, the disappointment in walking away from something that perhaps has changed. To be frank, I think once it gets into that territory, there are no more regrets for me. It's because it's a no-no. It doesn't exist. Let me put it that way. We just have to walk away from it. It's not. We know our strengths and we know our weaknesses and we know where we don't compete at all. So I don't play anybody's game. I think it's good to understand where you want to pitch and where you don't want to pitch. Once it gets into a realm that we do not have the capacity or the tolerance for, there are no regrets, honestly, for me personally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to our panelists. You've been very wonderful and done justice to our topic. It's been an honor sitting on the same platform with you. So I'll just be calling on Kemi now to round up the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to our panelists. Would you kindly stand on the stage so that the photographer can get a good shot of you as we round out? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as they do that, I'll just quickly start to summarize. It's been an interesting day. And I'm really hoping that, or we are really hoping that we've achieved what we set out to do. I've heard a few comments from those in the audience saying they picked up a few thoughts. That was indeed our intention. And perhaps the thoughts are a little different from what we typically hear. Yes, we wanted to give you some new things to think about, especially as we go into this end of the year period. As you think about what your reactions should be or what your actions should be during this period of time. We hope we've given you that food for thought, starting with Pastor Olakunle showing your session in the morning, followed by the 3 panel sessions we've had, and in between the feed discussions on how you can impact your community. I'll say thank you to our audience, and most especially thank you to our senior pastor, Pastor Pojo Emade. He is the visionary of the Covenant Community Groups. This program is an offshoot of that. It's the Corporate Professionals Community Group saying, these are the kind of conversations we have in the groups. The Covenant Community Groups run twice a year. The next semester will start registrations in January. We encourage you to join a group, register. There's always a list of groups available for you to pick. Pick one of them, and you can enjoy similar conversations with the members of your group. You can enjoy insights provided by experts like you've seen today. We'll hand over now to our senior pastor as he gives the closing remarks. Thank you again very much.
can't hear me? All right, you can hear now. Okay then. Well, I want to say I listened in to a lot of the conversation that was going on about rebuilding the nation, and very enlightening. And all I would just say is that I think to a very large extent, we have to understand that it's a process that is going to be involved. I think the long rule, military rule in Nigeria has kind of created a subconscious programming where we feel that things can actually be changed just instantly, maybe with just one decision. And so for people to understand it's a process, to understand that in order to change things in this nation in terms of politics, there has to be engagement at grassroots levels, like Pastor Kule Shoniyo said. People have got to, today was a by-election in Lagos State, the Lagos East Senatorial District that covers the Lekki Toll area, where a lot of was the hotbed of the protest. But feedback from the voting booths say that most of the voters are elderly voters, and they're not seeing the younger generation. And to people who hold political power, to them, that is a sign and an indication that you don't really have to take these folks very seriously, because they are not committing to voting to the actual process of getting things done. So I think there has to be, like Pastor Collins says, people have to come to the point where we understand, read really about the democratic process, where are the pressure points, how do I engage in this in order to bring about national transformation. It is not difficult, but it just has to be well understood. And the people who are good-hearted and are sincere and genuinely want to bring about a change must be well educated about how they can get themselves involved and really bring about the change that is in the nation. So I think people need to go back and really read a lot about governance and democratic process and understand how they can practically get involved to bring about a change, as in every single sector, in every single area, wherever we are. We try to follow the laid down process so that people do understand simple principles like rule of law and getting things done on merit and that. So that would be my closing statement. Thank you very much, Kemi, it's been a wonderful seminar, and all the speakers I was watching. That's what the digital age is all about, watching from my living room for my study. And I listen through to all the sessions. Thank you very much. God bless you all.